Chapter 4754. She then urged, "Big brother Lin Yi, hurry up and try it. If it doesn't work, I can improve it on the spot." "Okay, I'll start the furnace now." Lin Yi immediately asked Ning Xuefei to find a special alchemy room, took out all the materials and was ready to start the furnace. Hui Yudi hurried back to get the Thunder Shen Rattan. Although Lin Yi had more Thunder Shen Rattan than her, he was refining pills for her this time. She thought it was reasonable for her to provide them. Seeing that Hui Yudi insisted, Lin Yi couldn't say anything to her. Anyway, he had already regarded her as one of his own. Since she was one of his own, she would have a share of the good stuff in the future. It didn't matter whose Thunder Shen Rattan he used this time. In order to refine the Thunder Shen pill, in addition to the core material of the Thunder Shen Rattan, he also needed a variety of auxiliary materials. Although Lin Yi's material reserves had begun to take shape, he couldn't have all of them. Coincidentally, among the treasures of heaven and earth that he had extorted from the scarred man before, he had made up for the two missing materials. Everything was ready. Seeing that Lin Yi was sorting the materials and adjusting his state, Hui Yudi and the others watched from afar. They didn't even dare to breathe heavily for fear that they would affect Lin Yi. External disturbances were the most important during the process of alchemy. The ideal situation was, of course, for Lin Yi to refine pills in seclusion alone. However, the situation was special this time, and he needed Han Jingjing to watch the scene. He simply let Hui Yudi and the others come in to watch the show. Anyway, they were all on the same side and they had their own sense of propriety. He counted the Thunder Shen Rattan and other auxiliary materials one by one and put them all into the divine pesticide cauldron. Lin Yi took a deep breath and immediately started the alchemy program. Listening to Han Jingjing's voice on the tablet, Hui Yudi couldn't help but widen her eyes. However, Ning Xuefei and Shanghai Laner, who were next to her, didn't seem surprised at all. They had seen the situation of Lin Yi refining pills a long time ago. As Lin Yi said, they were already used to it. Everything was normal, and the tablet quickly calculated the alchemy curve. Lin Yi took a closer look and suddenly found that this alchemy curve was completely different from what he had tried before. In the previous attempts, although they weren't Thunder Profound pills, they were all 7th grade elixirs. At first glance, the alchemy curves seemed to be very different, but in fact they had one thing in common, and that was the middle and early alchemy curves were very complicated and tortuous. But once it reached the later stages, all of them looked very pleasing to the eye in classic arcs without exception. However, it was different this time. Not only was the alchemy curve full of twists and turns in the beginning and middle stages, but the later stages were even more obscure and difficult to understand. The twists and turns were extremely complicated. Compared to the classic arcs from before, it was simply ugly to the point of making one's hair stand on end. Lin Yi subconsciously turned his head to look at Han Jingjing and saw her nod at him. His heart instantly calmed down and he faintly understood something. The reason why the previous alchemy curves were beautiful was that they were purely based on data deduction. That was a perfect curve that only existed in the ideal. It was impossible to exist in reality. It would be strange if there were no problems in the alchemy process blindly according to the ideal curve that was like a castle in the air. Lin Yi's heart was settled, and he immediately input true qi according to the instructions of the tablet, and the divine pesticide cauldron began to buzz. All the women, except for Han Jingjing, couldn't help but show a nervous look, especially Hui Yudi, whose little heart was pounding. The success of this alchemy was directly related to her lifelong event, and she couldn't fail. Everyone knew. Every time the level of the medicinal pill increased by a grade, it meant that the difficulty of alchemy would increase significantly. This difficulty was not just an increase of 1 or 2 times, but at least 10 times and 100 times. Some special medicinal pills may even reach 1,000 times. This gap was much bigger than the gap in strength, otherwise high-grade alchemists would not be so rare. Every grade was an insurmountable gap. Looking at the Heaven Stage Island, except for the Eastern Continent, the 3rd and 4th grade alchemists were not rare, but when it came to the 5th and 6th grade, it was already the top guess that all the forces would compete to win over. As for the 7th grade alchemists, only those top forces could have them, and there was only one, and their status was extremely aloof. Although Hui Yudi had a faint, almost blind confidence in Lin Yi, but for him to be able to refine the Thunder Profound pill, she actually did not have any confidence in her heart. If the Thunder Profound pill was so easy to refine, then her master would not have such a headache, and even lower himself to bargain with Ren Zhongyun. Regardless of whether he could refine the Thunder Profound pill or not, Hui Yudi just saw that Lin Yi was willing to try so hard for her, and she was already very moved. As for what to do if he failed, she could only take one step at a time. Time passed by, everyone's heart was always tight. From time to time, the god's armament cauldron would make some strange movements, and every time, Lin Yi and Hui Yudi were scared. In particular, there was a time when the electric arc ran all over the room, and it was like a lightning strike which really scared everyone. In the process of refining the Thunder Profound Pill, a little carelessness would cause the furnace to explode. This was not a joke. At that time, Lin Yi was even ready to forcibly withdraw his true chi and take the girls to take refuge. But fortunately, the process was only a short moment, and after the amazing electric arc ran around for a while, it quickly dissipated, which made everyone feel a little relieved. For a whole day and a night, Lin Yi and the others finally managed to survive to the end. This time was not a long time for high-level cultivators like them, but during the whole process, they were always on tenterhooks. From time to time, there would be abnormal movements, and even dangerous electric arcs would run around the god's armament cauldron. This was not an alchemy furnace, it was simply an unpredictable time bomb. This kind of mental pressure was not something that ordinary people could bear, and if their psychological quality was slightly poor, it was not impossible for them to collapse on the spot. Fortunately, everyone's mind was still quite tough, listening to the sound of the tablet indicating the end of the alchemy, and seeing the god's armament cauldron completely silent. Lin Yi and the others looked at each other with lingering fear, and simultaneously let out a long breath of turbid air. Little junior brother, quickly see if it's done. Shangguan Laner couldn't wait to urge, and several others also showed a look of anticipation. This was especially true for Hui Yudi. Although she didn't have much hope in the beginning, she couldn't help but feel that she was lucky. The entire process seemed to be very serious. What if it really succeeded? Chapter 4755. Don't worry, this should be the residual thunder power of the Thunder Shen Vine. Don't worry, you guys, step back a bit. Lin Yi instructed, and then continued to carefully stick his head inside. He was actually shocked, but with the warning of the jade pendant, he was not afraid of being caught off guard. Hui Yudi and the others looked at each other and nervously looked at Lin Yi. Fortunately, there were no dangerous electric arcs this time, but Lin Yi's reaction was a bit abnormal. He was actually stunned and didn't move. Lin Yi? Hui Yudi carefully asked, afraid that he would be in danger again, but Lin Yi turned a deaf ear and didn't respond at all. This time, Ning Xuefei and the others couldn't help but become nervous. They looked at each other and wanted to rush forward to see what was going on. But at this time, Lin Yi finally raised his head and looked at the women with an inexplicable strange expression. How is it? How is it? Shangguan Laner quickly asked. I originally thought that these materials were at least enough to refine one Thunder Shen pill, and if luck was good, it was not impossible to refine two, but... Lin Yi's gaze finally fell on Hui Yudi. He wanted to say something but stopped. Could it be that it failed? Hui Yudi's face suddenly paled, but this was also within her expectations. She could only force a smile and said, "It doesn't matter, if it failed then it failed. In fact, this is also quite good. In any case, the Thunder Shen Vine has already been used up by me, so Master doesn't need to go and make a deal with Ren Zhongyuan." Ning Xuefei and the others couldn't help but look at each other. Although this was what she said, Hui Yudi would definitely be heavily punished by her master. After all, this was not a small matter, and in the end Ren Zhongyuan might still succeed. Lin Yi, however, shook his head with an unfathomable expression. He changed the subject and asked, "Yudai, what did you say before? With just these Thunder Mystic Vines, how many Thunder Mystic Pills can Ren Zhongyuan's father guarantee he can refine?" For Hui Yudi thought for a moment. She then added in a comforting manner, "But this is only what Ren Zhongyuan said. Who knows if he is talking nonsense or not? Maybe he can't even refine it. It's just a lie." For I don't know if he's lying, but it's not impossible. Lin Yi shook his head with a strange expression. He reached into the divine armament cauldron and opened his palm. There were a few crystal clear dark blue pills inside, and there were faint signs of electric arcs flashing in them. Even if the girls hadn't seen it with their own eyes before, how could they not react when they saw such obvious characteristics? Yes, this was the legendary Thunder Shen core. 4. Hui Yudi carefully looked at it and was immediately stunned. Lin Yi actually refined 4 Thunder Profound pills in one go. This was a level that could only be achieved by a top-notch 7th-stage alchemist. With such strength, one could easily become the chief alchemist of any Yellow Stage Academy in the East Continent. Look again. Lin Yi shook his head with a smile, and then his other hand reached into the divine armament cauldron and opened it. Hui Yudi almost fainted on the spot. Another 4. This time, even Ning Xuefei and Shangguan Laner all widened their eyes and were speechless for a long time. Hui Yudi only had a small piece of Thunder Shen Vine. But there were 8 Thunder Shen pills at once. This was not a dream, right? Even for those top 7-stage alchemists, it was very difficult to refine 4 at once. But 8, a full double, even if you think with your toes, you know that this is simply impossible. But no matter how unbelievable it is, the fact is that 8 Thunder Shen pills are neatly placed in front of you, you have to believe it. Woyuti was completely dumbfounded. She rubbed her eyes furiously until the corner of her eye twitched. Only then did she confirm that she wasn't hallucinating. She walked to Lin Yi's side and said, "Pinch me, I'll see if I'm dreaming. I haven't had such a realistic dream for a long time." "Don't worry, you're really not dreaming. This is real 8 Thunder Shen pills." Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he shook his head. In fact, he also felt that it was incredible. Because of his trust in Han Jingjing, he was confident that he could succeed this time, but he really didn't think that there would be so many. It must be known that even if he had prepared sufficient materials in advance, it would only be enough for 4 Thunder Shen pills at most. Because of the previous Zhong Yuan's words, he subconsciously thought so. He never thought that there would be twice as many. Now that he thought about it, it was estimated that Han Jingjing had made further optimization and improvement on the medicinal cauldron, which led to this unexpected overproduction. Han Jingjing, on the other hand, had a calm smile on her face the entire time, and it was as if he was looking at that confident woman Lu Jinghan. But the next moment, Han Jingjing returned to that cute smile of hers. No wonder the entire alchemy process was so unusual, making it so thrilling. It turned out that she had prepared such a big surprise for everyone. Ning Xuefei and the others cheered at the side. Only then did Huiyuti accept the reality, and she couldn't help but say, "How is your secular world so powerful, to actually have such a magical alchemy artifact? It's too heaven-defying. And that Kai Zi from before, his divine weapon is also frighteningly strong, it's really subverting common sense." "Who's Kai Zi?" Han Jingjing interrupted and asked. "Kai Zi is Kong Ming Ming, the nickname she gave him." Lin Yi smiled and explained. "No, it's obviously the nickname you gave him. You said he was Kai Zi. I didn't know what Kai Zi meant at first." Huiyuti pouted and retorted in a good mood. "Then do you know what it means now?" Lin Yi looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Ah." Huiyuti was stunned, and then she asked weakly, "Oh right, what does Kai Zi mean?" When the girls heard this, they immediately burst into laughter. Although Huiyuti most of the time in front of them was the image of a caring sister, when it came to things involving the secular world, she completely didn't know. "This can't be explained in a few words anyway. Kong Ming Ming is a typical Kai Zi, you can understand it that way." Lin Yi laughed, then immediately took out 3 Thunder Shen pills and handed them to Huiyuti. "Okay, with these 3 Thunder Shen pills, it should be enough to report to your master. I believe she won't say anything else." "Okay, now I don't have to care about that annoying Ren Zhongyuan anymore. Lin Yi, you're so good." Huiyuti was so happy that she gave Lin Yi a hug on the spot, until she felt the playful gazes of Ning Xuefei and the others around her. Only then did she embarrassedly withdraw with a red face. She was not an open girl, this was purely because she was too excited. Chapter 4756. There are still 5 Thunder Shen pills here. Jingjing, Feifei and Lan, each of you can have one. As for the remaining 2, I'm going to give them to my 2 friends. Do you have any objections? Lin Yi suggested with a smile. The friends he mentioned were Qi Wenhan and Xia Luoluo. Qi Wenhan was one of his own, and since Xia Luoluo was about to call him sister-in-law, she naturally couldn't be left out either. "What about yourself? Won't you have none left?" Huiyuti couldn't help but ask. "It doesn't matter, I have the Thunder Shen Rattan anyway. I also have enough supplementary materials. If I need them, I can refine them at any time. According to the results this time, the Thunder Shen Rattan I have should be enough to refine 32 Thunder Shen pills. This is a relatively conservative estimate." Lin Yi faintly smiled. "Thank you, big brother Lin Yi." Han Jingjing took the Thunder Shen pill from Lin Yi's hand and imitated Huiyuti's action just now to give him a hug. She didn't blush or feel embarrassed because of this kind of thing. After all, in the secular world, this could only be regarded as a greeting gift. First it was Huiyuti, then it was Han Jingjing. Now it was Ning Xuefei's turn to do the same. Although she was a native of Heaven Stage Island like Huiyuti, at least in name, she was Lin Yi's fiancée. Just a hug was no big deal. Lin Yi also didn't expect things to develop like this. After enjoying the soft jade and warm fragrance of the 3 women, it was Shanghai Laner's turn. Everyone was looking at her with mischievous eyes. "Little junior brother, don't tell me you also want me to hug you? I am your senior sister." Shanghai Laner pitifully looked at Lin Yi and said. Lin Yi was about to speak, but he was interrupted by Ning Xuefei. "We are not real senior sisters from the same sect. Even if we are real senior sisters, there are many senior sisters and junior brothers who become Dao companions. Lan, you have already been seen naked by him. What is there to be bashful about? See light? Hui Yudi was shocked when she heard this. She looked at Shangguan Laner in disbelief. She had never thought that Shangguan Laner and Lin Yi had already reached this stage. I'm not the only one. Feifei, aren't you the same? You were seen naked by junior brother the first time you met him. Even earlier than me. Shangguan Laner retorted proudly. Feifei, you too? Hui Yudi suddenly felt even more dizzy. It turned out that not only Shangguan Laner, but also Ning Xuefei. She was the princess of West Island? That was an accident. Ning Xuefei blushed and tried to defend herself. He turned to look at Han Jingjing and asked, Jingjing, did Lin Yi see you naked? Of course I have. Han Jingjing was not shy at all and admitted it naturally and gracefully. Hui Yudi suddenly spurted. Especially when the eyes of the three women naturally fell on her body, she was so shy that her pretty face turned red. She quickly waved her hand and said, I didn't, but Sister Hua, you said it yourself. Junior brother also used his mouth to treat the poison for you. He was lying under your skirt. Shangguan Laner's face was full of disbelief. Lin Yi had specially explained the truth about the photo, and he had also asked Hui Yudi herself for confirmation, so they knew about it. But he didn't see me naked. He didn't take off his clothes? Hui Yudi denied shyly. However, Hui Yudi suddenly felt balanced. It turned out that she was not seen by Lin Yi. Compared to them, her scale was much smaller. He only saw her thighs. She was afraid that the three women would laugh at her if they knew about this. It seemed that she was thinking too much. Then Sister Hua, how did you change into this denim? When you changed clothes, Brother Lin Yi should be able to see it, right? Han Jingjing also joined in excitedly. No, this was changed after I took a shower. He shouldn't be able to see it. Hui Yudi shook her head repeatedly. However, when she saw the increasingly playful expressions of the three women, she immediately knew that she was wrong. The more she tried to explain, the worse it was. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw this scene. It was clearly just distributing the Thunder Shen pill. Why did it inexplicably involve this? In particular, this situation was simply out of control. Shangguan Laner and the others were already urging Hui Yudi to quickly find an opportunity to let her see everything. She even said that good sisters should advance and retreat together. It really made people speechless. Just when Hui Yudi was being urged to take off her clothes by the three women. And at this moment, Lu Ziyu was sitting in her room. She looked at the empty black box with a worried expression. The Thunder Shen vine was gone. Lu Ziyu guessed that Hui Yudi had taken it, but she didn't know why she took it. Thinking of how Hui Yudi didn't return for the whole night yesterday, she immediately had a bad feeling. Could it be that Dai took the Thunder Shen vine to do something stupid? Could it be that she wanted to destroy the Thunder Shen vine? Even if she gained nothing, she still didn't want to marry Ren Zhongyuan? The more Lu Ziyu thought about it, the more anxious she became. Although Hui Yudi had been very obedient since she was young, she knew that this child had always been very opinionated. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been called an iceberg snow lotus. It was only because she didn't want to disobey her master, that she appeared to be obedient. To be precise, this was filial piety, not obedience. It was fine in the past, but when this filial piety and lifelong happiness stood on opposite sides, it was hard to say what Hui Yudi would choose. It was hard to guarantee that she wouldn't do something stupid. Just as Lu Ziyu's heart was burning with anxiety, the sound of Hui Yudi's footsteps came from outside. She pushed open the door and came in while happily humming a folk song. Seeing Lu Ziyu in the room, she was instantly stunned. Master. Seeing that Hui Yudi's hands were empty, with no sign of the Thunder Shen vine, Lu Ziyu's heart instantly turned cold. That's right, Dai must have given the Thunder Shen vine to someone else and thrown it away. She really didn't want to marry Ren Zhongyuan even if she died. At this moment, Lu Ziyu's intestines were green with regret. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have forced her disciple. Even without Ren Zhongyuan's deal with the Thunder Shen vine in their hands, they would still be able to think of a way. But now that even the Thunder Shen vine was gone, she might as well not even think of a way. Dai, where's your Thunder Shen vine? Did you throw it away? Lu Ziyu took a deep breath and hurriedly asked. Throw it away? Why would I throw it away? Hui Yudi shook her head in confusion. She shook Lu Ziyu's arm and said with a smile, I gave the Thunder Shen vine to someone else. Gave it to someone else? How can such a thing be given to someone so casually? This concerns your great future, Dai. Lu Ziyu's expression instantly changed, and her gaze became stern. No matter how much she pampered Hui Yudi, she couldn't make a mistake on this matter of principle. Chapter 4757. No matter what it is, you can't use the Thunder Shen Vine to exchange for it. There are only a few treasures in the world that are more precious than the Thunder Shen Vine. Even if there really is one, it's not as important as the Thunder Shen Vine to you right now. Lu Ziyu said bitterly. This isn't a treasure. Master, you'll know once you open it. Hui Yudi urged. Shaking her head helplessly, Lu Ziyu had no choice but to open the box. With just a glance at the item in the box, this big shot of Morning Pride Academy was instantly dumbfounded. She couldn't help but exclaim, Thunder Shen Pill? And it's 3? That's right. Now we don't have to bother with that annoying Ren Zhongyuan anymore. Hui Yudi hugged Lu Ziyu's arm and wrinkled her nose proudly. Ren Zhongyuan's 3 Thunder Shen pills could at most be counted as an expected gain. Whether they could get it or not was another matter. But now there were actually 3 Thunder Shen pills. It was completely different. What's going on? Where did you get it? Lu Ziyu hurriedly asked in shock. Her first reaction after seeing the Thunder Shen pills was shock, not happiness but worry. She thought that her disciple had taken the Thunder Shen Vine and secretly exchanged it with Ning Xuefe for ready-made Thunder Shen pills. Looking at the entire West Island, the only one who had the ability to take out 3 Thunder Shen pills and had a close relationship with Hui Yudi was Ning Xuefe, the princess of the West Island. They had been very close these few days, even sleeping on the same bed. Although this was a strategic resource and strictly speaking even Ning Shangling, the lord of the West Island, couldn't use it easily, and Ning Xuefe couldn't possibly make such a serious mistake. But the little girl was hot-headed. For the lifelong happiness of a good friend, it wasn't impossible for her to do such a thing under the radar. Thinking of this, Lu Ziyu couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. No matter what, she had to return these 3 Thunder Shen pills as soon as possible. Otherwise, once the matter was exposed, she really wouldn't be able to explain herself. However, Hui Yudi's next words instantly made her dumbfounded. These were all refined by Linny. Linny? He's an alchemist? And a 7th grade alchemist? How is that possible? When Lu Ziyu heard this, he was dumbfounded. He looked at Hui Yudi in disbelief. She thought that her precious disciple was joking, but Hui Yudi's expression clearly told her that it was all true. Yeah. Linny didn't even mention it to me. He's very powerful, right? Hui Yudi's face was full of pride and happiness. Are you serious? He actually managed to refine 3 Thunder Profound pills in one go, and he even managed to form them so quickly? Lu Ziyu was still unable to imagine it. The fact that Lin Yi was a level 7 alchemist was already unimaginable. However, even if this was true, even so, it was impossible to refine 3 Thunder Profound pills in such a short time. How long had it been? It had only been a little more than a day, right? Wrong, it's not 3, it's 8. Hui Yudi corrected. Dong. Lu Ziyu lost her balance and almost fell. She barely managed to support herself by leaning against the table. Her expression was indescribable. The corners of her lips were twitching. 8. Yeah, then I asked for 3. Hui Yudi nodded. Looking at Hui Yudi's serious expression, looking at the 3 Thunder Profound pills in her hand, Lu Ziyu couldn't help but pinch herself. Only then did she ascertain that she wasn't dreaming. She looked at her precious disciple speechlessly. It wasn't because Hui Yudi asked for too little. That bit of Thunder Profound Vine in exchange for 3 Thunder Profound pills was simply a huge benefit. There was no bigger pie than this. If it were the majority of the 7th grade alchemists, they would already be satisfied if they could get 1 Thunder Profound pill. Furthermore, they would have to use all kinds of supplementary materials as well as tens of thousands of spirit jades and hard work. As for Ren Zhongyuan, although he confidently swore that he could give 3, the prerequisite was that he had to sell Hui Yudi to him. The price was not something that could be measured by a mere tens of thousands of spirit jades. Lu Ziyu couldn't help but be a little shocked. Powerful strength, outstanding talent, and actually able to easily refine 8 Thunder Profound pills in a day. Lin Yi was also heaven-defying. No wonder Ning Shangling would think so highly of him. It had to be said that his own insight was far too lacking compared to this old friend of his. He had clearly heard her talk about Lin Yi's various miracles, but in the end he had still underestimated this young man. He had even almost forced to miss this opportunity. Thinking up to here, Lu Ziyu immediately blushed with shame, feeling that he had no face to meet anyone. Master, are you all right? Hui Yudi looked at Lu Ziyu's burning red cheeks and couldn't help but blink. Oh, I'm fine. Lu Ziyu laughed awkwardly. Only then did he react and asked, Lin Yi was able to refine 8 Thunder Profound pills. He should have used all of his Thunder Profound Vines, right? This speculation was reasonable. If Hoi Yuti's Thunder Profound Vines could refine 8, then wouldn't Thunder Profound pills be like cabbages? How could there be such cheap and high-yield Thunder Profound pills? No, it's just my Thunder Profound Vines. He hasn't even touched those. If he used them all to refine, he said that he could at least refine another 32. Hoi Yuti shook her head. Thump. This time, Lu Ziyu couldn't even support herself on the table and was about to fall over subconsciously. As a big shot of the East Continent Academy, she almost fell to the ground. Luckily, Hoi Yuti had quick reflexes and hurriedly stuffed a stool in front of her. Otherwise, she would have really fallen to the ground. 32. Seeing Hoi Yuti nod her head repeatedly, Lu Ziyu really regretted it so much that her intestines turned green. It wasn't because of Ren Zhongyuan's deal, but because when those two brats had taken photos as evidence of Hoi Yuti and Lin Yi having sex in the training grounds, how good would it have been if she had acknowledged them on the spot? Although doing so would have affected her disciple's reputation a little, there wasn't any substantial loss at all. Because she could have directly made the decision to let Hoi Yuti marry Lin Yi, and no one would have said anything. That way, it wouldn't have been Ning Shangling's turn to pick up such a handsome son-in-law. Sigh. What a blunder. What a blunder. Lu Ziyu stamped her feet and thumped her chest repeatedly. If Hoi Yuti wasn't present, she would have given herself 2 tight slaps. Lu Ziyu, you're really old, so old that your eyes are blurry. It was fine if your strength hadn't increased, but how did your foresight become so bad? You almost ruined your disciples' lifelong happiness. If this matter were to spread, how would you have the face to meet others in the future? Chapter 4758. They were both Thunder Mystical Vines. Hoi Yuti's mature Thunder Mystical Vine had already been refined into a Thunder Mystical Pill. Kang Xiaoming's unripe Thunder Mystical Vine, on the other hand, was secretly transported away with a few blood bats after registering. Bloody bats were small in size, but they were fierce spirit beasts that could not be underestimated. They were extremely fast and invisible, and a few of them could easily take away the Thunder Shenratans. Unless they deliberately slowed down, it was very difficult to detect them, let alone intercept them. However, although there was a monitoring area over West Island, as long as they left this area, basically no disciples of West Island would investigate them. After all, many chambers of commerce also relied on spirit birds for short-distance transportation. Seeing that the bloody bats finally transported the Thunder Shenratans away, Su Lingchong and Kang Mingming breathed a sigh of relief at the same time and slumped in their chairs. Since the trial result came out, they had been sitting on pins and needles, and they were almost scared out of their wits. They had thought that after Kang Mingming became the Fuma of West Island, they could sit back and relax. As a result, when Lin Yi came out, this dream was directly shattered. Now, not only could they not become the Fuma of West Island, but even the most basic personal safety became a problem. Whenever a disciple of West Island passed by, they had to act as if they were facing a formidable enemy. After all, they dug away the immature treasure of West Island, and now they were in a very miserable situation in West Island. Not only that, while guarding against the disciples of West Island, they also had to guard against their own people in North Island, such as Lan Chefu and Ramjia. If these two people asked for it in the name of the high-level officials of North Island, would they give it to them? These two were the top figures of the younger generation. If they didn't give it to them, they would definitely suffer. But if they really gave the Thunder Shenratans to them, once the mysterious man blamed them, they would only end up more miserable. Child Su, what should we do next? If those two really come to ask for it? Kang Mingming subconsciously shrank his neck. Now, if they sent the Thunder Shenratans away, they could smoothly report to the mysterious man, but if Lan Chefu and Ram Jie really came to find them, they couldn't explain it. I don't think so. This Thunder Shen Vine is the spoils of war that we obtained from the trial. They have no reason to take it. Su Lingchong shook his head with a grave expression. He was not confident at all. In fact, this was purely self-comfort. If they got the Thunder Shenratan in the normal way, the higher-ups of the North Island certainly had no reason to ask for it. But the problem was that the two of them dug out an immature Thunder Shenratan, which made the whole West Island filled with righteous indignation. The higher-ups of the North Island had to give them an explanation. But what if? Kang Mingming looked out of the door guiltily. Now, anyone who passed by outside would make him tremble in fear. There are no ifs. Su Lingchong pretended to be tough, but he still couldn't hide his guilty conscience. He added, I don't have the Thunder Mystic Ratan. I only have my life. Let's see what they can do. Kang Mingming nodded helplessly. This was a hopeless situation. However, there was no other choice at the moment. He could only follow what Su Lingchong said. However, he suddenly thought of a more important question. What if Lin Yi comes to find trouble with us? Damn it, we have to fight. Su Lingchong gritted his teeth and said, Child Su, why should we fight? He is Ning Shangling's son-in-law now. He can send anyone to kill us. Kong Mingming sighed. Don't worry. After all, he is still a disciple of the North Island. It's a taboo for disciples to kill each other. This is not the trial place. If he dares to do it, the two of them won't watch us suffer losses. Su Lingchong continued to comfort himself. Kong Mingming nodded and said nothing. He thought that Lin Yi dared to do it in the North Island, not to mention this was the West Island. Besides, if he randomly found a disciple of the West Island to do it, what evidence did he have to prove that it was Lin Yi who did it? In the next few days, the two of them hid in their rooms and didn't go out at all, for fear that they would be brutally beaten to death by the disciples of the West Island as soon as they went out. At that time, if the law failed to punish the masses, they would really die with everlasting regret. However, to their surprise, neither Lan Tiefu nor Ram Jie showed up, as if they really had no interest in the Thunder Shin Rattan in their hands. But on second thought, it was normal. With the strength of those two, they didn't need the Thunder Shin pill at all. A Thunder Shin Rattan alone was really not attractive to them. Even if they wanted to give an explanation to the West Island, Su Lingchong's grandfather would take the responsibility. Why would those two do it? At the same time, thousands of miles away, under a secret uninhabited island a few nautical miles away from the North Island, there was an amazingly huge basement, which even extended to the underwater world. It was a completely different world. At this moment, Miss Luan was sitting in the lab with her legs crossed, looking at the weird rattan that kept flashing with electric arcs across from her through a thick glass. It was the Thunder Shin rattan that Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming had sent over through the bloody bat. If Lin Yi saw this scene, he would definitely be shocked because they not only transported the Thunder Shin rattan here, but also planted it. The most surprising thing was that this place actually had a virtual thunder and lightning environment, and from time to time, lightning struck the Thunder Shin rattan from all directions. Unlike ordinary treasures of heaven and earth, the Thunder Shin rattan could only grow in a place with rolling heavenly thunder. The fiercer the lightning, the faster it would grow. Unexpectedly, these people had completely recreated the powerful heavenly thunder of the Heavenly Thunder Formation. Judging from the intensity of the lightning, it seemed that it was even stronger than the Thunder Shin rattan. Was incredible. Not bad. It seems that your previous efforts were not in vain to be able to create such a powerful thunder and lightning environment in this place. Miss Luan nodded with satisfaction. It's all thanks to Miss Luan for getting so many power-generating equipment from the secular world. As long as we have these things, it won't be a problem. A bespectacled man next to her said modestly. Well, since the conditions are complete, it's only a matter of time before this Thunder Shin rattan matures. Next, you have to research a way to mass-produce profound ascending stage masters as soon as possible. This is our current core project, don't let me down. Miss Luan said in a deep voice. In addition, be careful not to leak the nuclear reactor that generates electricity. If it attracts mountain opening stage or even sea splitting stage masters, even a nuclear bomb explosion will have no effect on them. Yes. The bespectacled man quickly nodded in response. West Island, a side courtyard of the Island Master's Palace. The previously set deadline of 2 days had passed. Ren Zhongyuan found an excuse and successfully sneaked in again. He couldn't wait to go straight to Hui Yudi's room. Although this deal was made with Lu Ziyu in the end, it still fell on Hui Yudi. Chapter 4759. At this time, Hui Yudi should have already washed up and obediently waited in the room for him to come. His mind was filled with romantic fantasies, but the moment he entered the room, Ren Zhongyuan's expression changed. The situation in the room was the same as the previous time. There was only Lu Ziyu sitting there, and there was no sign of Hui Yudi at all. Could it be that she was shy and had hidden herself? Where's junior sister Yudi? Although girls are thin-skinned, we're already so familiar with each other, so there's no need to be shy, right? Ren Zhongyuan smiled, thinking that he was very gentlemanly. At the same time, he looked around the room wanting to find Hui Yudi. You don't need to look. Isn't here. She went to play with Lin Yi. Lu Ziyu looked at him calmly. What? She went to play with Lin Yi? Ren Zhongyuan was so angry that he gritted his teeth, not concealing the fury on his face. He looked at Lu Ziyu with an unfriendly expression and said, Deputy Dean Lu, this isn't right, right? She's going to get married soon, and you're actually allowing her to go play with other men? This isn't very good. Get married? Lu Ziyu smiled noncommittally, asking in return, marry who? Are you talking about Lin Yi? Although he's a good match, it's not possible for now. He's already the prince consort of West Island. This is really quite a pity. What are you talking about? What does this have to do with that brat Lin Yi? Ren Zhongyuan didn't react for a moment. He looked at Lu Ziyu in a daze, not knowing how to react. The situation today was completely different from what he had expected. Why wasn't everything going according to plan? It's nothing. Do you have anything for me? If there's nothing, then hurry up and leave. This is a girl's room, not a place you can come to. Remember, don't do it again, Lu Ziyu said calmly. This time Ren Zhongyuan was completely stunned. This was completely wrong. He had come to receive Hui Yudi as the victor today, so why did the other party strangely take control of the situation? Lu Ziyu, this old hag, was indeed a big shot in the academy. She clearly had a favor to ask of him, yet she was still able to control the tempo with just a few words, making it seem as if he was the one making a request of her. Could it be that she wanted to use this opportunity to raise the price? After sorting out his emotions, Ren Zhongyuan thought that he had seen through the other party's intentions. He immediately grinned and said, Vice Dean Lu, we're all smart people, so you don't have to pretend to be ignorant. Aren't you afraid that doing this will backfire and force me to take back the generous conditions I promised before? What conditions? Did I promise you anything previously? Lu Ziyu looked at Ren Zhongyuan with a hint of a smile. Ren Zhongyuan suddenly became speechless, thinking in his heart that this old woman was really difficult to deal with. If this went on, he would definitely be led by the nose by her, so he could only go straight to the point and said, Vice Dean Lu, you won't release the eagle without seeing the rabbit, but forget it, I am a junior, so you give me the Thunder Shen Vine now, and later ask my father to directly send you the Thunder Shen pill after refining it. This should be no problem, right? Oh, you're talking about this matter. The Thunder Shen Vine has already been refined into a Thunder Shen pill, so there's no need to trouble you anymore. Thank you, Lu Ziyu said calmly. What? Already refined the Thunder Shen pill? That's impossible, how can it be so fast? Even my father needs at least 3 days and 3 nights to refine the pill. Vice Dean Lu, you can't lie to me about this kind of thing. Ren Zhongyuan sneered, subconsciously thinking that Lu Ziyu was lying to him, thinking that this old woman still wanted to raise the price. There's always someone better than you, there's nothing impossible in this world. Look for yourself, isn't this it? Lu Ziyu took out the box that Hui Yudi had given her and placed it on the table. Ren Zhongyuan looked on helplessly as she opened the box, and when he saw what was inside, he instantly felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Astonishingly, there were 3 neatly arranged Thunder Shen pills inside. What? They actually gave you 3 Thunder Shen pills? Who refined them for you? This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. Ren Zhongyuan was practically about to go crazy. 2 days ago it was just a section of Thunder Shen Vine, and in the blink of an eye, it had become 3 ready-made Thunder Shen pills. Was he seeing things or had the world gone crazy? What? Are you doubting me? Seeing that Ren Zhongyuan was actually about to rush over to take a closer look, Lu Ziyu's calm expression suddenly turned cold, and an incomparably majestic aura instantly pressed down on the other party's head. This big shot of Morning Pride Academy was obviously angry. Suddenly being suppressed by such a powerful aura, even a nascent soul paragon expert like Ren Zhongyuan could not bear it. He staggered and almost made a fool of himself on the spot. Ren Zhongyuan instantly broke out in a cold sweat, and only now did he realize that he had really been too complacent. He had thought that by relying on the sweet taste of the Thunder Shen pill, he would definitely be able to deal with the master and disciple pair. He had completely forgotten that the other party was a big shot of the academy. How could such an existence be so easily controlled by him? You're still not leaving? Could it be that you want me to invite you? Seeing that Ren Zhongyuan's expression was uncertain and he was still hesitating, Lu Ziyu could not help but let out a cold snort. She was really a little angry. This brat really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. If not for the fact that he had a bit of a background, she would have long since punished him. No, I'll leave right now. Ren Zhongyuan did not dare to stay any longer, and hurriedly left in a daze. When he went out, he even knocked into the door frame and tears came out from the pain. Looking at Ren Zhongyuan's clown-like back, Lu Ziyu shook her head repeatedly. She did not know why she felt that this brat was actually worthy of 2 days ago. Compared to Lin Yi, this kind of trash was like the difference between heaven and earth. Although there were times when anyone would make a mistake, this time around Lu Ziyu had not only made a mistake, she was simply blind. Luckily she had not made a huge mistake, or else it would be too late for regrets. Unknowingly, in Lu Ziyu's heart, Lin Yi had already become the best choice for her disciple. Although other than Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi, Lin Yi still maintained very subtle ambiguous relationships with girls like Han Jingjing and Shangguan Laner. Shanghai Tianhua and Ning Shangling did not say anything, so what else did she have to say? The thoughts and foresight of these two old friends were much more brilliant than her, the academy's vice headmaster. Their tacit agreement to remain silent meant that they had tacitly approved and connived with Lin Yi. What did this mean? No one was a fool. Facing a super genius like Lin Yi, all so-called rules and traditions were just fleeting clouds. There would always be people in this world who could transcend the rules, and Lin Yi was clearly one of them. Shanghai Tianhua and Ning Shangling understood this better than anyone else. Chapter 4760. At this time, at the edge of West Island, in an uninhabited cave near the endless sea, two people were sitting, and they were exchanging cups with great interest. Although this place was on the shore because it was too close to the sea, any wave could submerge the cave. Sometimes, sea beasts would even appear, eyeing them covetously. It could be said to be extremely dangerous. The officials of West Island made it clear that life and death were unpredictable here, and ordinary cultivators didn't dare to set foot here. However, these two people seemed quite relaxed and didn't take the warning seriously at all. There was no other reason. Their strength was enough to ignore this little danger, because one of them was the mysterious black-clothed man, and the other was the top master of the Spirit Beast clan, the new Azure Dragon. Except for Miss Luan, the immediate superior of the center, no matter where the mysterious black-clothed man appeared, he was absolutely arrogant and domineering, and had never lowered his head to anyone. However, this time he was willing to sit next to Azure Dragon, and his tone sounded a little humble. Since the mysterious black-clothed man treated him like this, it showed the terrible strength of the new Azure Dragon. After all, he was the top master of the Spirit Beast clan, and nominally he was on the same level as Vermilion Bird. One was a member of the center, and the other was the top elder of the Spirit Beast clan. If people knew that the two of them would meet in such a place, it would definitely cause an uproar. However, since they chose such a place, naturally they couldn't be easily discovered. Even those old monsters in West Island who didn't come into the world couldn't find out a little bit. No one knew what the two of them said, but judging from the atmosphere of drinking, both of them seemed to be quite satisfied with this first meeting. No one knew whether they reached some kind of cooperation or formed some kind of alliance. No one knew all this except for themselves. No third party would know. If someone accidentally heard a word or two, needless to say, they would definitely be thrown into the sea to feed the sea beasts, and it was impossible for them to live to the next day. The next day, the wharf of West Island was full of people, and the huge treasure ship with the logo of the 3 pavilions of North Island docked steadily on the edge of the wharf. After staying in West Island for 2 months, it was finally time for the delegation from North Island to go home. The treasure ship's warehouse had been filled with the gifts from West Island, and a group of disciples from North Island had boarded the ship one after another. Lan Chefu and Gong Yangjie were still very low-key, quietly mingling in the crowd. At this moment, the happiest ones were Kang Xiaoming and Su Lingchong. From the moment they stepped on the ship, their nerves that had been stretched taut for a long time could finally relax. For the past few days, they had been living in fear every day, and no one could withstand such a brutal mental pressure. They simply couldn't breathe under the pressure. If they didn't become mentally ill, they would have to praise their perseverance. What they didn't know was that they were purely wasting their feelings. Ning Shangling had ordered the disciples from West Island not to take action without permission. After all, as the host, they should have the bearing of a host. Otherwise, without this order, they would have been torn into pieces by the indignant disciples of West Island. It was useless to hide in the envoy's mansion because they had to die. On the deck of the wharf, Lin Yi was saying goodbye to Shanghai Laner and others. Although he was the special envoy of North Island personally appointed by Shanghai Tianhua, he was now the future Fuma of West Island. Before he sent Ning Xuefei to Dongzhou College according to Ning Shangling's order, he couldn't go back to North Island alone without permission. Little junior brother, don't worry. I'll take good care of Jingjing and wait for you to come back. You can stay with Feifei with peace of mind. Shanghai Laner patted her chest and promised. This time, although Lin Yi didn't go back to North Island, she had Han Jingjing by her side. After all, Lin Yi would accompany Ning Xuefei to Dongzhou College soon in West Island. Then Han Jingjing could only stay here alone. With her personality of a scientific research nerd, Lin Yi didn't feel at ease leaving her alone, so he simply suggested that she go to North Island with Shanghai Laner first, so they could keep each other company. Han Jingjing didn't have any objection to this. It was really meaningless for her to stay in West Island alone, and her research could also be done in North Island. After all, what Ning Shuefei could customize in West Island, Shanghai Laner could also do in North Island. Even though Si Haixiao was once beaten into a fool by Shanghai Tianhua's men in public, as long as Shanghai Laner said something, he, as the manager of the branch of the Central Chamber of Commerce, would never dare to disobey. Unless the Central Chamber of Commerce didn't want to stay in North Island anymore, they could only try their best to please Shanghai Tianhua. After all, they lived under the same roof. I'm not worried about this, but Lan you'll have trouble when you go back. If you don't pack up a research room quickly, Jingjing won't be able to stay here for long, Lin Yi said with a smile. How many times have I told you to call me senior sister? Shanghai Laner patted Lin Yi's head with a serious look, then turned to look at Han Jingjing. She rolled her eyes and said, as for the research room, why don't I discuss with Grandpa and renovate his study? Anyway, it's quite big. Pfft. Lin Yi suddenly burst into laughter. He looked at her speechlessly and said, if you really do that, I guess Cabinet Master Shangguan will have to put down his identity and PK with you in real life. I don't care. If he wants me to let go of his study, then he has to be responsible for making a big research room for us. Jingjing, am I right? Shanghai Laner smiled proudly, and the little curly bear next to her also swaggered around, looking like he was going to defeat Shanghai Tianhua, which really made Lin Yi speechless. Han Jingjing pursed her lips and smiled. She walked over and gave Lin Yi a sweet hug. She whispered in his ear, Brother Lin Yi, come back soon. Jingjing is waiting for you in North Island, hee. Don't worry, I'll come back to you after I send Fei Fei home. Lin Yi smiled and hugged her. To be honest, this girl seemed to have put on a little weight recently, and it was very comfortable to hold her chubby body. At this time, Han Jingjing didn't feel anything, but Shanghai Laner blushed. She pulled Han Jingjing over and complained in a low voice, Jingjing, you're so bad. What should I do if you hug my junior brother like this? Do you want me to hug him too? It's so embarrassing with so many people watching. It's just a hug. It doesn't matter, Han Jingjing said with a smile. I don't dare. After all, Shangguan Lan was not from the secular world. Although she was usually careless, she was still very shy at this time. If there were no one around, it would not be a big deal, but there were so many people watching. Chapter 4761. Everyone suddenly looked at each other speechlessly. This girl was getting weirder and weirder. Hoi Yudi, who came to see them off, couldn't help but say, what about me? Sister Hua, you can hug little junior brother. When we leave, you can hug him as long as you want. As long as you can win Fei Fei. Shanghai Laner smiled and hugged her again. Her words made Hoi Yudi blush and blame her again and again. In the end, when everyone was reluctant to say goodbye, the giant treasure ship blew the last horn of departure. Shanghai Laner and Han Jingjing boarded the treasure ship and desperately waved goodbye to Lin Yi and others. See you later. Ning Shuefei and Hoi Yudi also waved desperately. The two women's eyes were red and they were about to cry. Although Shanghai Laner was being funny, parting was not a happy thing after all. Especially they were like sisters. After this separation, they didn't know when they would see each other again. Don't worry, I will definitely let you get together in the future. I promise. Lin Yi comforted them softly. Ning Shuefei and Hoi Yudi nodded heavily at the same time. After looking at each other, they looked at Lin Yi and suddenly smiled through tears at the same time. Suddenly Lin Yi was puzzled. What was going on? The world of girls was really difficult to understand. After the North Island, the fleet of South Continent left immediately. Of course, this fleet referred to the fleet brought by Qi Wenhan and Xia Luoluo. As for the new Azure Dragon of the Spirit Beast clan, although he was also from South Continent, he was obviously not on the same side as them and had already left first. Qi Wenhan and Xia Luoluo were leaving, so Lin Yi naturally had to see them off. This time, Ning Shuefei and Hoi Yudi also came together. Although they had met several times during this period, they didn't talk much. Since they were good brothers of Lin Yi, of course they had to keep in touch with each other. After all, they would be in the same camp in the future. Unlike the North Island, which only had one giant treasure ship, the South Continent's fleet used 3 treasure ships this time, which filled the large West Island pier. When Lin Yi and others found Qi Wenhan and Xia Luoluo in the vast crowd, a group of South Continent's crew was busy carrying goods, and the scene seemed to be in full swing. This time they didn't just come to celebrate. At the same time, they also came with the commission of various chambers of commerce in the South Continent to buy various kinds of West Island specialties. It seemed that the 3 treasure ships were about to be full. Haha, as expected of the Boat King, sending out 3 treasured ships at once. I really can't think of anyone who could be so generous. Lin Yi brought the two girls to Qi Wenhan's side and said with a smile. In terms of models, each of the three treasure ships was much smaller than the one on the northern island, but they were all medium-sized. Moreover, the sight of the three treasure ships lined up together was truly shocking. Brother Ling. Qi Wenhan and Xia Luoluo greeted him with a smile. Then they realized that Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi had also come. They were instantly flattered and hurriedly bowed to them. Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi respectfully returned the greeting. Because they weren't too familiar with Qi Wenhan, the two of them had the appearance of a lady from a respectable family. They had received this kind of education since they were young. In addition, their looks and temperament were one in a million. Although their graceful bearing wasn't as natural as Ning Shangling's, it was enough to stun everyone present. Qi Wenhan couldn't help but secretly give Lin Yi a thumbs up. Even a random woman by his side was so beautiful and enviable. His brother was really a man's role model. You're going back to the South Continent soon. I don't know when we can meet again, so I have to ask you to bring your engagement gifts first. Otherwise, it won't be right if you don't get the gifts when the time comes, Lin Yi said with a smile. Engagement? Qi Wenhan was stunned. During this period of time he had only cared about sticking to Xia Luoluo like glue. He really hadn't thought about this seriously. This was a big deal, but although Xia Luoluo had agreed, the Xia family might not be so easy to deal with. Xia Luoluo's pretty face instantly blushed. She was lovely and charming, and the space between her brows was full of shyness and happiness. Of course, this kind of happy event should be done sooner rather than later. Brother Qi, don't tell me you want to waste Miss Ya's time like this? You're too heartless, aren't you? Lin Yi looked at him mischievously, then took out an exquisite wooden box from his bosom. He had asked Ning Xuefei to find it. The miniature map of the South Continent was engraved with a big happiness character. It was not only grand but also festive. Brother Ling, I still haven't thought of what to do. It won't be easy to get past the Xia family. Qi Wenhan smiled bitterly and shook his head. Although he didn't know what was inside the box, since it was an engagement gift, he would not refuse it. After all, this was Lin Yi's kind intentions. Xia Luoluo's expression was somewhat complicated. Even though she was very willing to be with Qi Wenhan, she was not alone. Protecting the family's interests was the first principle that had been instilled in her mind since she was young. If Qi Wenhan could not satisfy the Xia family, especially if her father gave his approval, this matter would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. There's no rush. Let's take a look at the gift first. Lin Yi smiled. Qi Wenhan and Xia Luoluo couldn't help but stare blankly. From their point of view, opening someone else's gift in front of them was a very rude thing to do. However, under the urging of Lin Yi's gaze, they still opened the box. Two pills that were faintly flickering with electricity came into view. Thunder Profound pills? Qi Wenhan and Xia Luoluo instantly cried out involuntarily. Fortunately, their reactions were fast enough to cover their mouths in time. Otherwise, other passers-by would have heard them. This time Xia Luoluo was completely shocked. Her eyes flashed with a look of disbelief. She covered her mouth, unable to speak for a long time. The last time Lin Yi had given her a golden condensed nascent soul pill was already shocking enough. She didn't think that this time it would be even more exaggerated. He had directly given her a 7th grade Thunder Profound pill, and 2 of them at that. Previously, it was a golden condensed nascent soul pill that could guarantee a nascent soul. Now it was followed by 2 Thunder Profound pills. If she had not personally experienced it, Xia Luoluo would never have imagined that such a bold man could exist under the heavens. Compared to this person, the so-called super geniuses of her family were not even worth mentioning. They would only make a fool of themselves. Brother Ling, this. Qi Wenhan choked for a long time before he weakly asked in a low voice, "Did you refine these yourself?" If he didn't know that Lin Yi had just obtained a Thunder Profound vine, even he wouldn't dare believe that Lin Yi could refine Thunder Profound pills. After all, an existence like a 7th grade alchemist could not be found in the entire South Continent, other than the Spirit Beast clan, in all the other human cultivators' territories. Chapter 4762. Upon hearing this, Qi Wenhan's mouth was wide open. After a long while, he quickly put the box back and looked at Lin Yi as if he was a monster. "Bro Ling, are you sure you're not the reincarnation of the legendary Dan God Zhang Liju? I think you should investigate your past life, seriously." "Then do I have to go down to hell and have a chat with Yama?" Lin Yi rolled his eyes, speechless. "Sure, if there really was a Yama, I'm sure he'd cry and look at you in a different light. If you call him master, maybe he'll take you in as a grandson and send you back to show off." Ah. Qi Wenhan laughed. Nah, I'm a coward, I'm afraid I won't be able to come back. Lin Yi curled his lips. Ah. Qi Wenhan laughed heartily, unable to hide the excitement on his face. He pretended to be calm as he looked at Lin Yi. Seriously, thank you bro. Lin Yi looked at his clenched fists as if he was about to jump into the sea. He couldn't help but laugh. Since we're brothers, there's no need to thank me. Qi Wenhan could only nod, his gratitude was indescribable. Just as Lin Yi had said, these two Thunder Shen pills came at the right time for him and Xia Luoluo. With his current strength and background, if he were to go to House Xia and ask for their hand in marriage, he would have some confidence in persuading them, but he couldn't guarantee 100% success rate. Who knew what would happen? At the end of the day, although the Heaven's Equal Security Agency was the new hegemon of the South Continent, compared to House Xia who was a ship's king, they had no foundation at all. Even if they gathered all their resources to prepare a betrothal gift, it would still be hard for House Xia to look at it. But with these two Thunder Shen pills, it was completely different. The Thunder Shen pill itself was extremely precious, but the meaning behind it was even rarer. Once House Xia knew that House Qi had such a powerful ally, then it wouldn't be House Qi who would suck up to them. Instead they would need to suck up to House Qi. Although he was young, he had the terrifying strength to kill a profound ascending stage master. At the same time, he was also the prince consort of West Island. What was even rarer was that he was a 7th-grade alchemist. Qi Wenhan had such a heaven-defying good brother. If the Xia family still obstructed Xia Luoluo's marriage, it could only mean that the brains of the Xia family's higher-ups were all filled with water. Furthermore, they were all foot-washing water that had been rotten for hundreds of years. Qi Wenhan was so excited that he couldn't calm down, and Xia Luoluo was so happy that she didn't know what to say. Looking at their sweet faces, Lin Yi couldn't help but smile. By the way, if there's anything in the future, remember to ask the Hong Enterprise Chamber of Commerce to send a message to the North Island. I'll wait for your good news. Alright you too, Brother Ling. Don't forget that you also have a share in the Equal Heaven Escort Agency. If you have any problems in the future, don't forget about us. Although our strength is not that great, we can still support you. All it takes is a single word, Qi Wenhan said solemnly. At this time all the goods had been loaded, and the fleet was already urging Qi Wenhan to board the ship. Lin Yi immediately smiled and waved goodbye saying, "Got it. Be careful on the way, have a safe journey. Brother Ling, take care." Qi Wenhan hammered Lin Yi with red eyes. Xia Luoluo bowed deeply, and then solemnly said goodbye to Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi. Then the two boarded the treasure ship under the urging. The magnificent fleet of 3 treasure ships soon set sail, leaving only 3 magnificent shadows on the sea. Shengguan Laner and Han Jingjing left, and so did Qi Wenhan and Xia Luoluo. Now Lin Yi had no acquaintances in West Island, and he could only accompany Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi all day long. Although it was a little boring, the two girls were quite satisfied with this kind of life. For them, they wouldn't be bored with Lin Yi's company. Even if it was just a chat, they would be in high spirits. This kind of life didn't last long. 3 days later, as the last foreign envoy group to land in West Island, the East Continent envoy group finally set sail. But different from other envoy groups, this time they would bring 2 guests, Ning Xuefei and Lin Yi. Ning Shangling had already booked a college for her daughter during this time. Without further ado, she could just hitch a ride with the East Continent envoy group. Anyway, Lu Ziyu would take care of them all the way, so she didn't have to worry about any problems. However, since the Princess of West Island and the Fuma of West Island were going to East Continent, it was a big event for the whole West Island, and a grand and spectacular farewell ceremony was absolutely indispensable. On this day, the whole pier of West Island was crowded. Including Ning Shangling, the island owner of West Island, almost all the high-level officials of West Island showed up, just to watch Ning Xuefei and Lin Yi board the ship. This kind of scene made Lin Yi secretly speechless. Originally, boarding the ship was a simple thing, but now it looked like some kind of ancient ceremony, majestic and solemn. This is really a big scene. People who don't know might think that we are going to go to war. I only heard that there is such a grand sacrificial ceremony when soldiers go to war. Today is an eye-opener. Lin Yi sighed to Ning Xuefei beside him in a low voice. He had seen all kinds of farewell parties, but it was the first time for him to see such a big scene and such a complicated ceremony. Ning Xuefei didn't say anything, but Ning Shangling, who was not far away, laughed. She glanced at Lin Yi and said, "Do you think it's a little fuss? In fact, this is the rule passed down by the ancestors of West Island, and it can be regarded as a rehearsal for the succession ceremony. If we don't do this, Feifei's succession in the future will seem unjustified, and there will be trouble. So, every time Feifei goes out, there is such a big scene. Linny was shocked. That's not true. Only when she goes out for the first time in Dongzhou, and the purpose is to pray for the future island owner. At other times there is no such treatment. Otherwise this girl always wants to sneak out to play and then we don't have to do business. Ning Shangling shook her head and laughed. I didn't sneak out. I left you a note. Ning Shuefei corrected her righteously. Yeah, when I saw the note in the corner, you had already run to the North Island, and you still have the face to say that. Ning Shangling hugged Ning Shuefei affectionately, then turned to Lin Yi and said seriously, Lin Yi, please take good care of Fei Fei for me. And Ning, don't worry, I will. Lin Yi nodded heavily. 2 hours later, the ceremony in West Island finally ended. Although Ning Shuefei and Lin Yi hadn't officially boarded the ship, Ning Shangling had already left with the disciples of West Island. After all, if they continued to block here, these people from Dongzhou didn't have to board the ship, because they couldn't squeeze through the crowd. Chapter 4763. Of course, the traditional ceremony couldn't be neglected, but they wouldn't insist on it. After that, they still had to follow the rules of the East Continent's envoy group. Even Ning Shuefei didn't want to be special at all and obediently followed the disciples of the East Continent to line up. At this moment, a super spectacular behemoth was parked at the pier of the West Island. Lin Yi thought that the giant treasure ship from the North Island was of the top scale, but he didn't expect that the one from the East Continent was several times larger. They were not in the same level at all. Moreover, it had just been refurbished so it looked quite dignified and vast, which made people feel awe. What shocked Lin Yi especially was that this super treasure ship had formations flashing repeatedly, and the terrible breath it emitted was frightening. This ship is so powerful. Lin Yi couldn't help but exclaim sincerely. Ning Shuefei, who was next to him, had small stars in her eyes. It seemed that she couldn't wait to dismantle this behemoth and study it carefully. The treasure ship was the pinnacle of the blacksmiths on the Heaven Stage Island, especially the one in front of her, which was the pinnacle of the pinnacle. This was the goal she had always pursued. Legend has it that this ship was built by an almighty expert in ancient times. It's different from those other treasured ships. It's an ancient warship. Hui Yudi had already lined up behind the two of them and she smiled as she explained. Ancient warship? Lin Yi was suddenly shocked. The treasure ship could cross the endless sea, and it also had various formations set up. Although they were all defensive, they were already extraordinary. However, compared with this ancient warship, it was nothing. The treasure ship could only carry people, but the warship could attack cities and territories effortlessly. Once the attack formation was activated, it was estimated that it could easily take down a city. Looking at this magnificent behemoth, Lin Yi couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He didn't feel anything when he looked at the giant treasure ship before, but now when he looked at this ancient warship, he couldn't help but think that it would be great if he could have such a ship. Of course, this was obviously unrealistic. Even North Island and West Island didn't have this kind of ancient battleship. It was estimated that only East Continent had such a few or even only one. Not to mention that Lin Yi was just a master at the middle stage of Yuanying realm. Even if he was in the mountain opening realm or even the earth opening realm, he couldn't have it. He could only imagine it. As they discussed the various rumors about the ancient warship, the three of them lined up to board the warship. Before boarding, they had to check their belongings to prevent anyone from bringing dangerous items that could threaten their safety. This was the most basic rule. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion not far behind them. From afar, they could see that the orderly queue had been disrupted. It seemed like there were two people escorting a person at the back to forcefully cut the queue. There were even loud curses coming from above. Get out of my way. Let junior sister Carrie board the boat first. This voice sounded a little familiar. Lin Yi took a closer look and found that it was Yi Xiaotian, who had been in contact with him before. At this time, he and Rin Zhongyuan were protecting Yao Jieli and cutting the queue violently. The people in front of them reacted a little slower and were directly kicked away by them. They were angry but dared not to speak. Lin Yi couldn't help frowning when he saw this. At this time, Lu Ziyu was still saying goodbye to Ning Shangling at the back. These two people dared to be so arrogant and unscrupulous. It seemed that they were used to being domineering. Along the way, Rin Zhongyuan and the others soon came to the side. They habitually wanted to kick people to open the way, but after being glanced by Lin Yi's cold eyes, they were suddenly stunned. After all, the people in front of them were not ordinary people. One was the princess of West Island, Ning Shuefei, and the other was Lu Ziyu's personal disciple, Hui Yudi. If they dared to treat the two girls the way they treated other people, they probably couldn't even think about leaving West Island, let alone returning to East Continent safely. Line up at the back. Lin Yi looked at them coldly. You. Ren Zhongyuan Yi Xiaotian, and Yao Jelly suddenly choked. Although they were angry, they really didn't dare to do anything to Lin Yi and the others. It was really unexpected that people like Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi didn't get on the boat first. Instead, they lined up here obediently, which was really unexpected. They thought that this kind of privileged person had already boarded the ship, so they dared to act arrogantly here. As for the ordinary disciples and attendants, in their eyes, they had no status at all. If they wanted to beat them, they could scold them, and if they wanted to, they could scold them. Who would dare to resist? Who knew that they would be humiliated here? Ren Zhongyuan and the others couldn't help but secretly think, are Ning Xuefei and the others crazy? They could obviously get on the boat first, but they had nothing better to do and waited here to line up. They must be crazy. Now Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi stood in front of them. No matter how arrogant they were, they dared not to continue to cut the line. This was the territory of West Island. If they were accused of violating the Princess of West Island, they would be grounded when they went back. They could only line up resentfully. Lin Yi didn't pay attention to them and continued to talk and laugh with Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi. He didn't pay attention to Ren Zhongyuan and the others at all. To be honest, with Lin Yi's current level, if he still paid attention to them, he would overestimate these people. Ren Zhongyuan was angry when he saw Lin Yi. Now seeing his arrogant look, he was even angrier. He immediately lowered his voice and warned with an arrogant face, "Boy, you are just a disciple of North Island. Don't think that you can do anything as the prince consort of West Island. When you come to Dongzhou, you are nothing at all. You are just a poor frog at the bottom of a well." "What kind of frog are you? Bullfrog or toad?" Lin Yi smiled and retorted sarcastically. "I am." Ren Zhongyuan was almost fooled. When he saw Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei covering their mouths and laughing, he suddenly reacted. He was so angry that his face turned red. He snorted and said, "Humph, I don't want to waste my breath on you. If you don't want to die, be the prince consort of West Island and stay away from my junior sister Yudi. Otherwise you won't even know how you die." Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei's faces changed. When they were about to scold him, Lin Yi stretched out his hand and stopped them. He smiled lazily and said, "Is that so? Since you are so brilliant, may I ask how will I die?" "You arrogant boy, listen carefully. Brother Ren is the boss of our boat. Everything on the boat is decided by Brother Ren. How do you think you will die?" At this time, two subordinates suddenly appeared behind Ren Zhongyuan. They were Li Yuzhou and Sun Baolu. Chapter 4764. He is the boss of this ship? Do you mean that this ancient battleship belongs to his family? Lin Yi pretended to be surprised. Sun Baolu suddenly choked. Of course, this ancient battleship couldn't belong to Ren Zhongyuan's family. This kind of thing couldn't be owned by any Yellow Step Academy, let alone Ren Zhongyuan's family. If this was spread out, people would laugh their heads off. You know nothing. Although this ancient battleship is not Brother Ren's, it can be borrowed temporarily because of Brother Ren's father's connections. Of course, Brother Ren has the final say. Li Yuzhou quickly retorted. When Lin Yi heard this, he was really a little surprised. Being able to borrow an ancient battleship of this scale, it seemed that Ren Zhongyuan's father seemed to be very popular. The status of a 7th-grade alchemist was really high. No wonder this kid was so arrogant. It seemed that he did have some capital. Yes, you are such a blind guy. You dare to offend Brother Ren on the ship. You really don't know how to die. Sun Baolu shouted arrogantly, unwilling to be outdone. It was a rare opportunity for the two of them to express their loyalty, and they racked their brains to squeeze Lin Yi. Just as they were getting excited, Lu Ziyu's cold voice suddenly rang out from behind them. "Why aren't you lining up properly? What are you guys doing blocking the way here?" Hearing this voice, Li Yuzhou and Sun Baolu immediately shivered, almost peeing their pants in fright. They hurriedly hid behind Ren Zhongyuan. Right now, the person they were most afraid of seeing was Lu Ziyu. What if this academy's bigwig suddenly decided to punish them, or even throw them into the sea to feed the sea beasts? Lu Ziyu didn't even look at them. Unless Hui Yudi's reputation was really damaged, she naturally wouldn't care about such a small character at her level. It would only bring disgrace to her identity and make others laugh at her. "Deputy Dean Lu, you misunderstood. We are just chatting casually, lest some people don't know the rules and lose their lives after boarding the ship." Ren Zhongyuan glanced at Lin Yi with a faint smile. Although he hated Lin Yi in his heart for a long time, he couldn't do anything these days in West Island. He could only watch Hui Yudi hang out with this guy all day long. But now it was different. He had waited for the day where he could turn things around. As long as he boarded the ship, it would be his territory. He could do whatever he wanted with Lin Yi. Even with Lu Ziyu holding the fort, it was useless. After all, it was impossible for this old woman to monitor the situation in real time. When the time came, there would be plenty of opportunities. Lin Yi smiled indifferently. After bowing to Lu Ziyu, he continued chatting with Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi. As for Ren Zhongyuan's so-called threat, he really didn't take it to heart. After boarding the ship according to the order, the first thing they did was to assign rooms. Although Ren Zhongyuan could indeed give orders in many things, even the assignment of rooms for most disciples was decided by him. Unfortunately, this matter was related to Ning Xuefei, the princess of West Island. No matter how bold he was, he didn't dare to interfere in this kind of thing, so he could only let Lu Ziyu personally assign rooms. Ning Xuefei's room was next to Hui Yudi's, and Lin Yi, as the future emperor's son-in-law of West Island, naturally had to be arranged near Ning Xuefei's room, which was directly opposite to Hui Yudi's. This arrangement really made Ren Zhongyuan so angry that his teeth itched. That was the room he dreamed of. He finally realized that Lu Ziyu, this old woman, not only didn't stop Lin Yi and Hui Yudi from approaching, but also took the initiative to create opportunities for them. She was really shameless. Everything was ready, and the ancient warship finally slowly left the pier of West Island amidst the cheers of countless people, accompanied by the ancient and desolate sound of a horn. It rode the wind and broke through the waves, heading toward the endless sea. It was rare to see an ancient warship, and Lin Yi had wanted to take this opportunity to take a good look around it. Unfortunately, he was told that he could only move around in the living area. As for the confidential areas such as the weapons and formations, only the warship's operators were allowed to enter. Other outsiders were not allowed to take even half a step closer, including people like Lu Ziyu and Ren Zhongyuan. It was only then that Lin Yi understood. It turned out that this ancient warship couldn't even be considered as a rental. All the operations were handled by its original crew, and the others were just temporary passengers. I had thought that I could broaden my horizons. What a pity. After coming to this conclusion, Lin Yi could only shake his head resentfully. Yes, what a pity. Ning Xuefei, who was standing beside him, also sighed. Her interest in this ancient warship was only greater than that of Lin Yi's, but she couldn't even take a look around. She had wasted such a good opportunity. Although she was the princess of West Island, she had never had the chance to ride on such an ancient warship before. Stop complaining, you two. I heard from Master that some academies still have ancient warship blueprints. When the time comes, we can just think of a way to get them and take a look. Who knows, Feifei, you might even be able to make one with Jingjing. Hui Yudi chuckled and comforted her. For some reason, she was especially interested in the words of the secular world. Really? Then we can give it a try. Ning Xuefei's eyes instantly lit up. Seeing her reaction, Lin Yi was speechless. Even if they could really get their hands on the blueprints, it wasn't something that could be created just because they wanted to. Han Jingjing was only talented in creating advanced technological products, but Lin Yi thought of another person. That person was the Junk King. Perhaps one day he would be able to create a warship. At this time, a melodious horn sounded on the ship. Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Could something have happened? No, this horn means that it's time to eat. Let's go now. Hui Yudi smiled and immediately led the two of them to the canteen. Previously, when Lin Yi saw the canteen of the giant treasure ship in the North Island, he already felt that it was very luxurious and luxurious. However, when he saw the super-standard canteen of this ancient warship, he suddenly had an idea. People from the East Continent really knew how to enjoy themselves. It wasn't just Lin Yi, even Ning Xuefei was dumbfounded. The princess of West Island had seen a lot of good stuff in her life, but this was the first time she'd seen a ship's cafeteria that was this exaggerated. Resplendent gold and jade would only seem tacky, whereas this cafeteria before him was simply an indoor paradise with an extremely high style. Various delicacies were placed on the beautiful jade pawns, and they could be obtained by just taking a few steps. Not only was it extraordinarily elegant, it even caused others to unconsciously open their mouths and sigh endlessly with praise. Ning Xuefei excitedly took a plate of pastries from the jade pool and tasted it. Suddenly, her eyes lit up and she couldn't stop praising it. Well, Lin Yi, you should also try it. This pastry is so delicious. It's not worse than our West Islands at all. Chapter 4765. After that, he found that Ning Xuefei's words were true. The pastries of the West Island were the best in the heavenly stage island. After all, it was a country of women. However, the pastries here were not only not inferior, but even slightly better. It is said that the owner of this ancient warship is a superb gourmet, so every chef on his ship is a famous chef on the heavenly stage island. Moreover, the characteristics of the food from all over the world are gathered here. Being able to eat here is a dream of many gourmets. Yudi explained with a smile. Really? Then I can't let go of this opportunity. I'm going to eat a lot. Ning Xuefei suddenly turned into a foodie. Taking a plate of pastries was not enough. Her eyes shone as she looked around for delicious food. That sweeping posture made Lin Yi stunned. He had not seen this side of her before. Fortunately, he was not short of spiritual jades, otherwise he really could not afford to raise this foodie princess. Yudi, is this place a formation? Lin Yi did not care much about eating, but was quite curious about the strange abundance of spiritual energy here. This spiritual energy flowed naturally, and it did not seem to be purely accumulated by a large number of spiritual jades. And my master said that this is a very special chi gathering array. It can condense the spiritual energy in the sea for my use. Yudi nodded. Can condense the spiritual energy in the sea? Lin Yi was suddenly surprised. This technology was actually so awesome. However, on second thought, if it could not be replenished in the sea at any time, with the tonnage of this ancient warship, no matter how many spiritual jades it had, it would not be enough for its consumption. During the conversation, Ning Xuefei had already swept a basket of delicious food around. The entire cafeteria had more than a dozen quaint pavilions for people to eat and drink. When the three of them found the nearest one and were about to eat, they found a few familiar faces coming in. It was Ren Zhongyuan and his group. Enemies on a narrow road. Ren Zhongyuan saw Lin Yi and Yudi together, and suddenly his eyes were burning with anger. His mind was full of thoughts of throwing Lin Yi into the sea to feed the sea beasts. However, there were many people here. No matter how confident he was, he could not do anything to Lin Yi, the prince consort of the West Island. With a cold snort, he walked to the next table with Yi Xiaotian and the others and sat down. Lin Yi, of course, wouldn't take the initiative to pick a fight with this guy. He continued enjoying the food with the two girls as they chatted and laughed, completely unaffected by the appearance of these people. The more Lin Yi was like this, the more Ren Zhongyuan was angry. At this time he was not in the mood to eat. At this time he gave Liu Zhou and gave him a look. The two men immediately nodded. Kid, our big bro Ren is generous enough to give you one last chance. Either you make a clean break with Miss Hua and kowtow to our big bro Ren, or you can quit your job. I guarantee that you won't even know how you died. Liu Zhou and Sun Balu walked to Lin Yi's side and threatened him coldly. Even Ren Zhongyuan and Lin Yi were not taken seriously, let alone these small fries. Although he was too lazy to deal with them, they had come looking for trouble, so he would not spoil them. Without raising his head, he said indifferently, "Scram or die." Yoho. You're quite arrogant. Do you really think that no one dares to touch you because you're the bullshit West Island's Fuma? To tell you the truth, your identity is equivalent to a pile of shit in the East Continent. Sun Balu shouted as he stomped his foot. That's right. Even if we don't kill you, we still have a million ways to make you wish you were dead. Do you want to open your eyes today? Liu Zhou sneered. Both of them had already made up their minds to trample on Lin Yi to show their loyalty to Ren Zhongyuan. After all, the photo incident was caused by this guy. It was a good opportunity for them to take revenge. As they spoke, they wanted to grab Lin Yi's collar. Although they were not strong enough, Ren Zhongyuan and the others were not far from them. They did not believe that Lin Yi would dare to resist. Otherwise, it would give Ren Zhongyuan an excuse to make things difficult for him. This brat would only die more miserably. However, Lin Yi did not move at all. He just glanced at them coldly. Immediately, they felt a gust of vital energy invading their bodies. Their knees felt as if they had been pounded with garlic, and they instantly lost feeling. With a plop, they knelt right in front of Lin Yi. You've admitted your mistake so quickly? Is everyone in your academy so warm and hospitable? Then I've really opened my eyes. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Yudi and Ning Xuefei, who were beside him, could not help but smile at each other. Liu Zhou and Sun Balu were scared out of their wits. Their hearts were filled with regret. Previously, during the trial, they had not seen the scene of Lin Yi slapping Scarface. This time they had personally experienced it. How was this a soft persimmon? He was simply a great demon. What are you two doing? Quickly stand up. Ren Zhongyuan saw this and could not help but be angry. He did not know that these two had been subdued by Lin Yi without batting an eyelid. He thought that they were purely subdued by Lin Yi's aura. These two little brothers were so cowardly. How could he, the big brother, show his face? Liu Zhou and Sun Balu almost cried when they heard this. If they could stand up, why would they kneel? They looked at Lin Yi with fear and trepidation. The two gritted their teeth and rolled back to Ren Zhongyuan's side. They stammered, Brother. Brother Ren, this brat is strange. He actually played dirty with us. What? Ren Zhongyuan was shocked, but he did not show any fear. Instead, he felt that he had found an opportunity to attack. He immediately got up and walked towards Lin Yi's direction with an unfriendly expression. He did not believe that Lin Yi would dare to attack him unless this brat was really tired of living. Seeing that Ren Zhongyuan was about to attack, Lin Yi was calm and unruffled in the midst of the chaos. He continued to chat with the two girls as if there was no one else present. Whether it was Hui Yudi or Ning Xuefei, they did not look nervous at all. After all, the two of them were very clear about Lin Yi's strength. If Ren Zhongyuan dared to attack, he would only humiliate himself. There was nothing to worry about. Humph, do you really think that I don't dare to attack you? I'm sorry to tell you that you've miscalculated. Today I'm going to discipline you, the Emperor's son-in-law, on behalf of West Island, in case that you don't know how to behave properly when you go to Dongzhou and bring hatred to West Island. Ren Zhongyuan sneered. Then he raised his hand and was about to slap Lin Yi's face. At this moment, Lin Yi suddenly moved, but he did not directly attack Ren Zhongyuan. Instead, he directly flipped the table without saying anything. Ning Xuefei had taken a lot of soup and water before, but she did not have time to drink a few mouthfuls. Now, all the soup and water were splashed on Ren Zhongyuan's face. For a moment, everyone present was dumbfounded. Ren Zhongyuan himself was a little confused. He stared blankly at the hot soup and did not know how to react for a moment. Chapter 4766. Lin Yi cried out with an aggrieved expression. I've already tolerated it time and time again, why do you still have to force me? Is it really true that two tigers cannot live on the same mountain? Although I'm only at the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, I definitely won't lower my head to evil forces. We were just having a good meal and you actually came over to flip our table. Ren Zhongyuan, aren't you too arrogant? Ren Zhongyuan watched Lin Yi's performance and the corners of his mouth twitched. Just by looking at Lin Yi's aggrieved expression, he really wanted to flip his table for himself. What the fuck was going on? The others didn't react, and only Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei were secretly laughing, because they saw Lu Ziyu walking over at this moment from the corner of their eyes. What's wrong? What's with all this ruckus? Lu Ziyu questioned with a dignified expression. Actually, with Lu Ziyu's strength, even if she wasn't present, she could still clearly understand the situation just now. Now that she saw Lin Yi's serious acting, she almost laughed out loud. However, she also knew that Lin Yi was creating an opportunity for her to teach Ren Zhongyuan and his group a lesson. This group of people was becoming more and more unbridled and even looked down on her. It was time to teach them a lesson. Vice Dean Liu, we were having a good meal here and then he came over and flipped the table, intentionally making things difficult for us. I don't care, but Fei Fei is the princess of West Island, and this matter concerns the reputation of West Island. We can't just let it go like this. Lin Yi didn't give the other party a chance to speak at all, and immediately took advantage of the situation to accuse them. There's actually such a thing? Lu Ziyu instantly frowned, and her imposing manner pressed down on the heads of Ren Zhongyuan and his group. She said in an unfriendly tone, Ren Zhongyuan, even if this ship was temporarily borrowed by your father through his connections, it's now carrying the East Continent's diplomatic group, and represents all the yellow stage academies in our East Continent. It doesn't belong to your family alone. I hope you're clear about this. The corners of Ren Zhongyuan's mouth twitched and he immediately wanted to retort, but unfortunately the other party didn't give him a chance to speak at all, and interrupted him before he could finish a word. I've seen bold people, but this is the first time I've seen someone so stupid. How dare you flip Fei Fei's table? What do you mean? Do you want to take the opportunity to sow discord between our Dongzhou and West Island? Or are you going to declare war on West Island on behalf of your Ren family? Lu Ziyu looked at him coldly. Ren Zhongyuan glanced at Lin Yi, who was still pretending to be wronged, and his face turned pale with anger. His fists were clenched so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. He wanted nothing more than to tear this bastard to shreds on the spot. However, faced with Lu Ziyu's scolding, he could not say a single word, and did not even dare to retort. He couldn't afford to destroy the relationship between East Island and West Island. As for the declaration of war between the Ren family and West Island, it was even more nonsense. Even if the Ren family had some capital compared with a giant like West Island, it was just an ant at the foot of an elephant. They were not on the same level at all. Aren't you going back to reflect on your mistakes? Do you really want things to get out of hand? Lu Ziyu snorted coldly and warned, remember, don't do it again. If you do it again, you don't need to alert West Island, and I'll be the first to punish you. After all, she was a giant of Dongzhou College. Ren Zhongyuan, an expert in the fulfillment of the nascent soul realm, could only be oppressed in front of her aura. He could only take his people away with a belly full of anger. He could also see that Lu Ziyu and Lin Yi were in cahoots. If he continued to fight, not only would he not get any benefits, he might even be beaten up more severely. Then he would suffer a great loss. Before leaving, Ren Zhongyuan gave Lin Yi a hateful look. His eyes were full of resentment. What happened today was not over. Looking at Ren Zhongyuan's embarrassed look like a drowned rat, and then looking at Lin Yi's aggrieved look, Hui Yudi was speechless for a while, and then she laughed and said, your acting skills are not bad. I didn't know you were so bad before. Bad. I just did what he wanted to do. Lin Yi pinched his nose and chuckled. Come on, I can see it now. He did want to fight just now, but he probably didn't think of flipping the table. After all, we're all sitting here. No matter how brave he is, he wouldn't dare to flip Feifei's table. He shouldn't be that stupid. Hui Yudi shook her head. If Ren Zhongyuan really dared to do that, I wouldn't just scold him and be done with it. I would do it for real. Lu Ziyu looked at Lin Yi's innocent expression and couldn't help laughing. I really couldn't tell that you actually have such a bad side. Hearing that, Lin Yi was about to clear his name, but Ning Xuefei, who was at the side, had already rushed to expose. Aunt Lu, Sister Hua, don't be fooled by his appearance. Don't think that he's usually good, but he might actually be a liar. When I first met him in the northernmost island, he cheated hundreds of thousands of spirit jades from others. Is that so? Feifei, quickly tell us how Lin Yi cheated people. You haven't told me about the northernmost island yet. Hui Yudi's interest was instantly piqued. She pulled Ning Xuefei to another table and urged her. Lin Yi couldn't help but be speechless. Especially when he saw that even Lu Ziyu revealed an interested expression, he instantly didn't know what to say. As expected, there was no difference in the size of a person's appetite for gossip. Even the Academy's big shots were no exception. He wondered if Ning Shangling, the West Island's island lord, was the same. On this side, the fire of gossip was burning fiercely. On the other side, Ren Zhongyuan, who was retreating in a sorry state, became angrier the more he thought about it. He didn't know how many things he had smashed along the way. He originally thought that once he arrived on the ship, it would be his territory, and he could do whatever he wanted with everything. For trash like Lin Yi, he could do whatever he wanted. He didn't expect that he would be made a fool of the moment he arrived and end up with his face covered in dirt. This won't do. If we don't quickly think of a way to get back at him, it will only make that brat more and more arrogant. It doesn't matter much to us, but Brother Ren, you're in trouble. Otherwise, if this drags on for too long, Hui Yudi might really be seduced by that brat. Yi Xiaotian looked at Ren Zhongyuan's sorry state and said with a frown. I already said that Hui Yudi is a little slut. She knows that he is the West Island's prince consort, but she will probably shamelessly go up to him. In that case, Senior Brother Ren, you won't have a chance. Can you bear with this? Yao Jelly added oil to the fire. Nonsense, of course I can't bear it. Ren Zhongyuan was so angry that he gritted his teeth. However, when he thought of Lu Ziyu's warning just now, he felt a little uncertain. He said helplessly, but Lu Ziyu, that old woman, is obviously protecting him. If we do it openly, she might really take the opportunity to flip out. No one can predict what the consequences will be. Chapter 4767. Brother Ren, if we can't do it in the open, we can do it in the dark. Can't we think of a way to get back at him? At this time, Li Yuzhou interrupted cautiously. He and Sun Balu's knees were injured by Lin Yi, and they still couldn't stand up until now. They could only crawl on the ground with their hands. If they brought a bowl, they could go out and beg for food. They hated Lin Yi to the core. Yes, let's give him a taste of his own medicine. We can also make him suffer in silence. Sun Balu echoed. Let's give him a taste of his own medicine? Oh, can you think of a way for me? Ren Zhongyuan glanced at the two impatiently and frowned. This matter must not be delayed. If we reach the East Continent, we don't know which college that kid in Ning Xuefei will go to. At that time, it will be too late to deal with him. We must act before he gets off the ship. Li Yuzhou and Sun Balu suddenly looked at each other. This kind of thing was easy to say, but to really think of a reasonable and feasible idea, it was really not something that could be thought of in a short time. Isn't it just empty slander? In my opinion, this matter is actually not difficult. Brother Rin, have you forgotten that the disciples of the East Continent have to work on the ship in shifts? Even we are no exception. Although that kid has the title of West Island's son-in-law, he definitely can't make an exception. After all, he is going to the East Continent College to study, so naturally he has to follow our East Continent's rules. Yi Xiaotian pinched his chin and said, "Yes, as long as he works on shifts, we have a chance to frame him and let him taste the feeling of being unable to explain himself." Rin Zhongyuan clapped his hands excitedly. "So, Brother Rin, you have already thought of what to do?" Yi Xiaotian asked with interest. "Yes, you guys just wait and watch the show. This time I must force this West Island son-in-law to a dead end, hee." Killing intent flashed in Rin Zhongyuan's eyes. Although he did not dare to act openly due to Lu Ziyu's intimidation, as long as he could make Lin Yi unable to explain himself, even Lu Ziyu would not be able to protect him. The next day, just as Rin Zhongyuan and the rest had expected, all the East Continent disciples, including Lin Yi and Ning Xuefei, were assigned to work in shifts. Ning Xuefei's task was to follow Hui Yudi and the rest to clean the deck. As for Lin Yi, he was assigned to the canteen, where he was responsible for putting all kinds of delicacies into the immortal stone jade pool. This kind of task was purely to run errands. Anyway, there was nothing special about the place where the food was placed. As long as it could be reached, it was fine. It was neither laborious nor difficult. With just the strength of one person, Lin Yi easily finished the task in a short while. During lunchtime, the East Continent disciples came to the canteen in groups of 3 to 5. Naturally, Lin Yi was with Hui Yudi, Ning Xuefei and the rest. Along the way he passed by Ren Zhongyuan and the rest. However, what surprised him was that this guy only glanced at him coldly and did not come over to look for trouble. Could it be that he was really frightened by Lu Ziyu's words? But what did that sinister smile at the corner of his mouth mean? Lin Yi shook his head in confusion. He had a vague feeling that something was wrong, but he could not put his finger on it. 4 hours later, Lin Yi's bad premonition finally became reality. All the East Continent disciples had been poisoned. The symptoms were very strange. There was only a faintly discernible poisonous gas wandering around the meridians in their bodies. Other than that, there was nothing special. At first glance, everyone looked very normal. Even the circulation of vital qi was unimpeded. The only thing was that this poisonous gas was difficult to expel from the body no matter what method was used. If that was all, it would still be fine. The problem was that this poisonous gas would suddenly invade their heart meridians at some point in time, and once their heart meridians were invaded by the poisonous gas, they would not be far from death. All the East Continent disciples were gathered together, looking at each other worriedly. In these 4 hours, there were already 3 disciples whose heart meridians had been damaged, and it was Lu Ziyu who had barely managed to preserve their last breaths. Now, their lives were on the line, and there was a possibility that they would breathe their last at any moment. If they did not think of a way to get rid of the poisonous gas in their bodies as soon as possible, the others would suffer the same fate sooner or later. Perhaps all the East Continent disciples on the ship would lose their lives. Among everyone, only Lin Yi was not affected. He had a physique that was immune to all poisons, and it was very difficult for ordinary poisons to have any effect on him. However, the others did not know this and thought that he had been poisoned as well. After all, even a big shot of the academy like Lu Ziyu had not been spared. The intensity of the poison was no small matter. For a moment, the atmosphere on the ship was extremely tense. Everyone was looking at each other and keeping their guard up against each other. With such a large-scale poisoning incident happening suddenly, it was definitely impossible to say that there was no one behind it. Vice Headmaster Lu, I believe that there must be the true culprit behind this incident. Only by quickly finding him will we be able to get the antidote. Ren Zhongyuan immediately jumped out and said. The others nodded as well, all of them shouting loudly to catch the true culprit. This matter concerned their lives, so there was no room for hesitation or delay. You have a clue? Lu Ziyu looked at him with a slight frown. This matter had been very strange from the start, making him feel baffled. If there was really someone who had intentionally poisoned them, then how did he operate it and what were his intentions? If he had really wanted to poison them to death, he could have chosen a stronger poison, and would not have given everyone the time to react like this. Even if they could not get rid of the poison, this bit of time was completely enough for them to find the true culprit. Wasn't this just asking for trouble? Thinking about it carefully, there was something indescribably fishy about every part of the incident. However, the crowd was very agitated now, and if this dragged on, the situation might very well go out of control. When that time came, it would really get out of hand. Lu Ziyu could only first declare that he wanted to find the true culprit behind the scenes. Only then would he be able to pacify the crowd. Yes. Ren Zhongyuan's resolute reply immediately roused everyone's spirits. His gaze swept across everyone's faces, pretending to be suspicious before he slowly said, "Earlier, I discovered that only our East Continent's disciples were poisoned, while all the crew members were safe and sound. Doesn't everyone feel that this is the most obvious clue?" "What do you mean?" Those with slower reactions had not understood, but Yi Xiaotian, who was at the side, smacked his head and said, "What Brother Ren means is that the culprit poisoned our food." Chapter 4768. The crowd nodded their heads in agreement. Although they had no idea why the culprit would do such a thing, it was the only logical way for the culprit to target all the disciples of the East Continent. "You mean the culprits are those chefs?" Lu Ziyu narrowed her eyes. She still felt that something was wrong, but since so many people agreed, she could only follow their train of thought and continue asking. "It's possible, but the possibility is very small. They are all top-notch experts of the Heavenly Island. Poisoning their food is worse than killing them. Not to mention that their families are in the Eastern Continent College. There is no reason for them to do so." Ren Zhongyuan pinched his chin and analyzed objectively. "That's right. They have little contact with us East Continent disciples. They shouldn't have the motive. Besides, if they really had the intention, they could have done it on the way to West Island. Why wait until now?" Yi Xiaotian echoed. Looking at the two of them echoing each other coldly, Lin Yi could roughly guess what was going on. They had led the other's train of thought into their rhythm. Next, they would probably target him. In that case, who is it? Other people can't enter the kitchen without permission, so there shouldn't be a chance to poison the food. Lu Ziyu shook her head. The kitchen was not a place that could be easily sneaked in. No, the rest of us really don't have the chance to poison the food. Only one person meets this condition, and that is the person responsible for moving the food today. As long as we catch this person, all the problems will naturally be solved. Ren Zhongyuan revealed his fox's tail as expected. The person who moved the food today? Lu Ziyu frowned slightly. The rotation of work was arranged by special disciples. She really didn't know the specific division of labor. She immediately looked at the disciple and asked, "Who is it?" The disciple took out the name list and glanced at it. His expression changed and he said, "It's Lin Yi." In an instant, everyone's eyes fell on Lin Yi. They were shocked and angry. These people didn't know Lin Yi and had no enmity with him. Who would have thought that this guy would deliberately poison people as soon as he got on the boat? Lin Yi? How could it be Lin Yi? Lu Ziyu was also shocked. She felt that something was wrong from the beginning and now it was true. "That's right, it's him. I saw him moving food before." Very soon, a disciple stood out to testify. "Yes, I saw it too." Many other disciples chimed in. This matter was not a secret to begin with, and more than half of the East Continent disciples present had seen the scene of Lin Yi carrying the food. The crowd was agitated, and Lin Yi suddenly became the target of public criticism. He was instantly pushed to the opposite side of everyone. Under the threat of death, they could only grab onto this life-saving straw. Only by locking onto Lin Yi, the real culprit, could they get the antidote. Humph, what a wild ambition. We were kind enough to give you a lift, but not only are you not grateful, you want to poison all of us to death. What are your intentions? Ren Zhongyuan looked at Lin Yi coldly, and the corner of his mouth unconsciously revealed a strange curve, as if his scheme had succeeded. There's no need to waste words with this scum. Hurry up and capture him to force out the antidote. We can't afford to delay any longer. What do you say, Deputy Dean Lu? Yi Xiaotian encouraged the crowd. Yes, capture the real culprit and execute him. Hurry up and force out the antidote. Everyone was anxious as expected. Anyone who discovered that there was a poison gas like a ticking time bomb in their body would probably find it hard to maintain their rationality. Lu Ziyu couldn't help but be in a difficult position. She obviously didn't believe that it was Lin Yi who poisoned them, but now the situation was out of control. If she didn't do something, it would be hard to say what would happen next. Deputy Dean Lu, don't tell me you still want to protect him at this time? You are the leader of our East Continent's diplomatic mission. Don't tell me you really intend to disregard the lives of so many people? Are you determined to associate with this kind of wild ambition scum? Ren Zhongyuan sneered when he saw this. Yesterday, not only Lin Yi made a fool of him, but this old woman was also an accomplice. Of course, he had to make things difficult for her. Today he had to force her to personally take action against Lin Yi. Lu Ziyu glared at him, but she couldn't directly refute at this time. Otherwise, so many East Continent disciples would really explode. To a certain extent, she had already been held hostage by public opinion. Even if she raised all kinds of doubts, it would only make everyone think that she was protecting Lin Yi, which would aggravate everyone's dissatisfaction. Wait. At this time, Hui Yudi stood out and looked at Ren Zhongyuan coldly. You said that Lin Yi is the real culprit, but what about the motive? He has no enmity with so many of us, why would he poison us? That's right. Lin Yi is our West Island son-in-law. You guys are framing him without any evidence. Do you really think our West Island is easy to bully? Ning Xuefei spoke up at the same time. Although her strength wasn't great, her status was there. She had been influenced by Ning Shangling since she was young. At this moment she really had the aura of a superior. When everyone heard this, they instantly flinched. They weren't stupid. Lu Ziyu could see that there were many doubtful points in this, and so could they. They were so agitated purely to save trouble. If Lin Yi happened to be the real culprit, then they could directly get the antidote. If they couldn't get it, at most they would just wrongly accuse Lin Yi. As for whether Lin Yi was dead or not, it didn't matter to them at all. But now, facing Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei's attack, they didn't dare to be the first to speak up. Once they wrongly accused Lin Yi, they would have to pay the price. For a moment, everyone's gaze turned to Ren Zhongyuan again. The motive is very simple. Didn't you guys say that I flipped his table yesterday? Humph, then he must be harboring hatred in his heart. His strength is much weaker than mine, so he can only use despicable tricks like poisoning. Now what else do you guys have to say? Ren Zhongyuan retorted with a cold smile. Ridiculous. Even if Lin Yi really wanted to take revenge on you, he only needed to poison you. Why did he have to make things so big and poison everyone? Isn't that asking for trouble? Hui Yudi questioned. That's right. Our Lin Yi isn't as stupid as some people. He didn't use such a low-level framing trick. There's no technical content at all. Ning Xuefei curled her lips and said. Chapter 4769. Aren't you framing me? I'll fucking kill you. More than half of the East Continent's disciples on this ship are my people, and they're naturally on my side. Even if it's a false testimony, I can force you to die, haha. Sophistry. Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei were so angry that their faces turned red when they heard these words. Only Lin Yi himself, who was the person involved, was calm and unperturbed, without any signs of panic. You may know a person for a long time, but you don't know his heart. Junior Sister Yudi and young Miss Ning, I advise you to stay away from this despicable person. Otherwise, you won't even know when you'll be killed by him. Who knows, you might even be helping him count the spirit jades after being sold by him. Ren Zhongyuan sneered. Vice-Dean Lu, you've already said it like this. Isn't it inappropriate for you to drag it on and not state your position? Could it be that you're really determined to protect this brat? Yi Xiaotian seized the opportunity to force her to abdicate. He and Ren Zhongyuan had obviously discussed this beforehand. One was responsible for targeting Lin Yi, while the other would not give Lu Ziyu a chance to react, attacking from both sides. Right? Regardless of whether or not this kid is the real culprit behind the poisoning, as long as we capture him and use the soul-searching technique on him, it will be fine. The lives of so many of us in Vice-Dean Lu's heart, could it be that they are not as important as a single kid? The others echoed in unison. Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei were instantly anxious. The soul-searching technique caused irreparable damage to one's divine sense. Even if one reached the nascent soul stage, the soul-searching technique would cause great damage to one's vitality, and they might not be able to recover even after tens of years. These people clearly wanted to destroy Lin Yi. Lu Ziyu couldn't help but be in a dilemma. These people had been incited by Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaotian, and even with her authority, it was very difficult to suppress them. This matter was really troublesome. However, at this moment Lin Yi finally stood up. He still had a calm look on his face as he looked at Ren Zhongyuan and said, You insist that I'm the one who poisoned them. Other than your own mind full of wild imaginations, do you have any substantial evidence? I remember that we have to check our belongings before boarding the ship. But now we have poisoned the ship on such a large scale. I want to ask, how did you manage to smuggle so much poison on board without anyone knowing? His words rendered everyone speechless. Poisoning required poison, but to say that so many poisons could be casually brought up was an insult to everyone's intelligence. This was a top-notch ancient warship. Anyone who boarded the ship would not only have to be inspected by the crew, but they would also have to go through a special detection array. Under such tight security, it was basically impossible to sneak across the sea without being noticed. This was indeed unjustifiable. You can hide this from others, but unfortunately you can't hide it from me. Ren Zhongyuan, on the other hand, had a card up his sleeve. He looked at Lin Yi proudly and grinned coldly. You still don't know, but my father is not only a 7th-grade alchemist, but he is also a famous pharmacist in the East Continent. Unfortunately, I happened to learn a little from him. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows non-committally. Under normal circumstances, it is indeed very difficult to smuggle poison on board. But I have just carefully studied everyone's symptoms of poisoning, and discovered that it coincides with a strange poison from the legends. The name of this poison is heart-piercing anemone. Ren Zhongyuan said confidently. Heart-piercing anemone? This is a poison from the sea? Lu Ziyu was instantly shocked. That's right. This kind of heart-piercing anemone is very common in the sea. However, very few people go into the sea, so they don't know much about this thing. Only a very few medicinal scriptures have records of it, and I just happened to see it in my father's study. Ren Zhongyuan smiled proudly, looked at Lin Yi and said, so, you don't need to bring poison with you at all. You only need to catch some heart-piercing anemone from the sea when everyone is unprepared, then grind it into powder and put it in their food. This thing dissolves when it comes into contact with water, and it is colorless and tasteless. No one will notice it at all. This deduction sounded reasonable and well-founded, but he was actually exposing what he had done in front of everyone. He was just putting the blame on Lin Yi. Heart-piercing anemone was his unique method. If he didn't say it himself, not many people would know about this poison. After all, the sea was the territory of the sea beasts. No matter how amazing an apothecary was, it would be very difficult for them to come into contact with the sea creatures, let alone carefully study them. After hearing this, everyone came to a realization, and they looked at Ren Zhongyuan with gazes of worship. As for Lin Yi, his identity as the real culprit had been indirectly confirmed. Out of everyone present, only he had the conditions and opportunity to poison the sea creatures. No matter what, this guy was the #1 suspect. There was no way he could escape this point. That still doesn't prove that it was Lin Yi who poisoned it. You know so much about it. Who knows if you were the one who fished up the heart-piercing anemone to frame Lin Yi? Ning Xuefei refuted without hesitation. That's right. From beginning to end, it's all your words. None of us know about the heart-piercing anemone, and only you know about it. Doesn't that mean that you are also the biggest suspect of poisoning it? Hui Yudi said coldly. Junior apprentice Sister Yudi, don't be blinded by this despicable person. As the old saying goes, the onlooker sees more clearly. Between me and him, who is more suspicious of the poisoning, I believe everyone here can see clearly. Ren Zhongyuan looked like he had suffered a great grievance. He suddenly turned to everyone and said, me and Lin Yi, who do you think it is? Lin Yi. Of course it's Lin Yi. More than half of the East Continent's disciples here had to act according to his instructions. At this time it was obvious who to choose. Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei were secretly anxious. If this went on, these people would force Lin Yi to use the soul-searching art on him again. At this time, Lu Ziyu waved her hand at everyone and finally expressed her stance. Lin Yi is indeed suspected of poisoning the heart-piercing anemone. However, before I find the evidence, I will only put him under surveillance. If the two of you want to make a move on the West Island's prince consort, feel free to give it a try. Her words made Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaotian, who had deliberately created this scene, speechless. Fuck, this old woman was too much of a hindrance. However, cursing silently was one thing. Lu Ziyu's absolute strength was there for all to see. If they dared to jump out at this time, they would only be cannon fodder. No one was a fool. Everyone could only choose to shut up resentfully. Very well. Since all of you feel that we can't act rashly, then properly think of a way to cure the poison. As for the matter of investigating the truth, we'll talk about it after. Without any conclusive evidence and only relying on wrangling like this, everyone might as well just wait for death. Lu Ziyu's tone was extremely unyielding. Lin Yi looked at Lu Ziyu, a little astonished. He had not had much contact with this big shot of the academy before, especially after the incident where she forced Hui Yudi and Ren Zhongyuan to make a deal. His impression of her was not very good, but now it had changed. Chapter 4770. As for when the crowd's anger subsided, they would split up and target Ren Zhongyuan and Lu Ziyu so that they wouldn't dare to act rashly, and in the blink of an eye, the scene of a group attack would disappear. Ren Zhongyuan was extremely unwilling, but now that things had come to this, he couldn't continue to incite the crowd to target Lin Yi. If he really angered Lu Ziyu, he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences either. Deputy Dean Lu, I can't do anything about it. However, if I can detoxify everyone, you can't possibly continue to protect this kid, right? The poisoning must be investigated to the end. Ren Zhongyuan immediately bargained. You can detoxify? Lu Ziyu glanced at him. That's right. Don't forget that I'm a 5th grade alchemist. Since it's confirmed that it's the heart-piercing sea anemone's poison, I have a way to refine an antidote. As long as everyone takes it, they'll naturally be safe and sound. Ren Zhongyuan said proudly. Once he said this, everyone instantly became excited again. All of them looked at Ren Zhongyuan with fervent gazes. As long as he could refine an antidote, it would be equivalent to saving all of their lives. Then how many can you refine? Lu Ziyu asked with a frown. This antidote is slightly complicated, but there are various materials stored on the ship. I can refine one in 2 hours. Ren Zhongyuan still had a smug look on his face. The heart-piercing sea anemone's poison was not low, and the corresponding antidote had reached the 5th grade. For him to be able to refine one in 2 hours was already a very shocking speed. 1 in 2 hours? Then how long can so many people last? Lu Ziyu instantly frowned. There were close to 100 disciples from the East Continent present. Wouldn't Ren Zhongyuan have to wait for 100 hours? And this was on the condition that he didn't sleep or rest. Now, only 4 hours had passed, and there were already 3 people who couldn't hold on any longer. Not to mention 100 hours. Looking at the way things were going, it wouldn't even take 20 hours for everyone to die. Ren Zhongyuan was stunned. Previously he had been thinking of framing Lin Yi, thinking that after he killed Lin Yi, he would stand up and detoxify the poison. However, he had neglected this crucial point. How was he going to detoxify the poison of so many people? At this moment, the faces of everyone present instantly turned deathly pale. It wasn't easy for them to grab onto the last life-saving straw, but in the end it was really just a straw. It couldn't save their lives at all. If this went on, wouldn't they only be waiting for death? Looking at Ren Zhongyuan's dumbfounded expression, Lu Ziyu, who had been holding on to a bit of hope, was completely speechless. They had already left the West Island for more than a day, and it was too late for them to return now. This was really a big deal. With Lu Ziyu's strength, he was confident that he could suppress the poisonous gas, but the others could not. The longer this dragged on, the more disciples from the East Continent would be affected by the poison. By then, there would definitely be large groups of people dying. With so many people dying at once, Lu Ziyu would be too ashamed to answer to the various academies in the East Continent after he returned. With such a big stain on him, it would basically be impossible for him to be entrusted with any important tasks in the future. Everyone sighed, and the already depressing atmosphere became filled with despair. Lu Ziyu's expression also became grim. Once people were forced into a corner, they would be able to do anything. Once someone took the risk out of desperation, it would be impossible for the matter today to end peacefully. At this moment, Lin Yi suddenly smiled and said, "Why don't you let me give it a try?" What? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Ren Zhongyuan looked at Lin Yi as if he was looking at an idiot and sneered in disdain. Give it a try? Do you know what you're saying? My detoxification pill is a 5th grade medicinal pill. What are you going to use to try it? Don't tell me you're also a 5th grade alchemist? 5th grade alchemist? Then I'm really not one. Lin Yi shook his head calmly. However, before Ren Zhongyuan could let out a complacent laugh, he said in a calm tone, "But if it's just a 5th grade medicinal pill, I can refine 100 of them in 2 hours. It shouldn't be difficult for me to detoxify everyone." The crowd was in an uproar and everyone looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. Being able to refine 100 5th grade medicinal pills in 2 hours? What exactly was this guy's background? After being stunned for a moment, Ren Zhongyuan pointed at Lin Yi's nose and stomped his feet, shouting, "Impossible! You're freaking spouting nonsense. Refining 100 5th grade medicinal pills in 2 hours? Even a 7th grade alchemist like my father can't do it. Do you think you're a god? You're really daydreaming. No matter how much you say, it's useless. Anyway, everyone doesn't have a choice. It's like trying everything in a hopeless situation. What's the harm in letting me try? Who knows, I might really succeed." Lin Yi smiled unconcernedly. The others didn't think much of it, but Lu Ziyu's eyes lit up when she heard it. Out of everyone present, only Shi Huiyudi and Ning Xuefei knew Lin Yi's background. This guy was an amazing person who could refine 8 profound thunder pills in a day. Although refining 100 5th grade medicinal pills in 2 hours sounded very exaggerated, to Lin Yi, it might not really be impossible. Even if he couldn't do it, it was still better than Ren Zhongyuan, who could only refine one pill in 2 hours. Only if Lin Yi came out to help, the many East Continent disciples present would have a chance of survival. Otherwise they could only sit there and wait for death. Since that's the case, then the two of you will refine as many pills as you can. Everyone's lives are in the hands of the two of you, so you must do your best. Lu Ziyu immediately decided. Lin Yi naturally had no objections to this, while Ren Zhongyuan looked at him coldly. Today, because of Lu Ziyu's protection, he couldn't kill this brat. However, since things had developed to this point, it wasn't like he couldn't make use of it. His eyes turning, Ren Zhongyuan ordered someone to bring over a pen and paper. He wrote down some ingredients on it in a flamboyant manner and said coldly to Lin Yi, "I don't care what you're planning, brat, but since things have developed to this point, I won't say anything else. This is the antidote pill formula." Lin Yi stretched out his hand to receive it. Although antidote pills generally had a general template, there was no absolute omnipotent antidote pill in this world. If one wanted to truly detoxify the poison, they had to find the right medicine for the illness. In the past, Lin Yi had never even heard of the heart-piercing anemone. If he wanted to refine the antidote, he could only rely on the pill formula Ren Zhongyuan provided. However, Ren Zhongyuan suddenly took back the pill formula and snorted coldly, "This is a 5th-grade pill formula, something that can't even be bought in the market. You want to take it away so casually? Don't you know how to behave yourself?" Lu Ziyu was about to speak, but he was stopped by Lin Yi's gaze. He looked at Ren Zhongyuan calmly and said, "Then what do you want? Don't tell me you want me to fork out spirit jades to buy it?" Chapter 4771. What's the condition? Lin Yi asked indifferently. It's very simple. Didn't you say that you could refine 100 pills in 2 hours? Then let's have a competition. We'll set a time limit of 2 hours. I'll refine one and you'll refine 100. Whoever can't do it will never be able to meet junior sister Yudi again. How about it? Do you dare to compete? Ren Zhongyuan sneered. He didn't believe that Lin Yi could refine 100 pills in 2 hours even if he was beaten to death. He could use this matter to force this kid to slap his own face. Hee, your method of comparison is really weird. I'm glad you could say it. Lin Yi smiled faintly and nodded immediately. Fine, I've been kind since I was young. Then I'll satisfy your pretentious act for once. I'm just afraid that you won't admit it when the time comes. Humph, once a word is said, it can't be taken back. Ren Zhongyuan threw the pill formula to Lin Yi without another word, for fear that Lin Yi would go back on his word. No matter how he looked at it, the result was destined. Still not admitting it? Only a fool would not admit it. The others looked at each other, but Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei didn't look worried for Lin Yi at all. They had seen Lin Yi refine pills with their own eyes. Regarding this matter, they were more confident than Lin Yi himself. All right, everyone help prepare the materials and let Lin Yi and Ren Zhongyuan refine pills separately. Under Lu Ziyu's command, the group of East Continent disciples immediately volunteered to help the two of them. This matter concerned their lives. At this time, everyone wanted to be diligent and perform well. Otherwise, what if there were not enough antidote pills in the end and they fell behind? After returning to his room and asking someone to send the materials over, Lin Yi closed the door and officially began refining pills. Although it was his first time refining this kind of antidote pill, this mere 5th-grade pill was really not difficult for the current Lin Yi. Moreover, the godly pesticide cauldron had just been upgraded by Han Jingjing. Refining grade 5 pills was a piece of cake for her, especially now that she could refine a large number of pills. In the past, she could only put in 10 sets of ingredients at a time. Now she could put in 30 sets at a time. Everyone waited nervously. In less than 2 hours, there was no movement from Ren Zhongyuan's side, but Lin Yi had already pushed open the door and left. How is it? Lu Ziyu hurriedly went up to greet him personally. When she thought of the wager between Lin Yi and Ren Zhongyuan earlier, she felt a little nervous. Earlier, she really shouldn't have had so many reservations and should have directly stepped forward to reject this wager. After all, if Lin Yi didn't manage to refine 100 pills, what would happen if he really couldn't meet her disciple in the future? Lin Yi smiled, took out a rather large box and handed it to her. He said with a smile, "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. 120 pills should be enough to cure everyone's poison. You can take this and distribute it to everyone." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was stunned for a moment. Then they suddenly burst into an uproar. All of them were overjoyed, and the gazes they used to look at Lin Yi were as if they were looking at a monster. In less than 2 hours he had produced 125th grade pills. Was this guy really human? Without caring about anything else, everyone immediately snatched a detoxification pill and consumed it. After the medicinal effects were digested, they discovered that the faintly discernible poisonous qi in their bodies had indeed completely dissipated. This time, even their last bit of apprehension was instantly dispelled. All of them gathered around to express their gratitude to Lin Yi. Putting everything else aside, he had, after all, saved their lives. Previously they cooperated with Ren Zhongyuan to squeeze Lin Yi. That was because they felt that Ren Zhongyuan was their backer, and Lin Yi was indeed suspected of poisoning them. But now, it seemed that Lin Yi's backer was more than 10,000 times thicker than Ren Zhongyuan's. Who cared about who poisoned them? This guy was at least a 5th-grade alchemist. With such a strong backer, if they didn't seize the opportunity to curry favor with him, they would definitely be fools. In the face of these East Continent disciples who were like grass on the fence, Lin Yi, Huiyudi, and Ning Xuefei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Although the East Continent Academy was a gathering place for geniuses, no matter where it was, there would be no lack of such fence-sitters. If you were strong, they would be friends. If you were weak, they would be enemies. Only the weak would understand the hardships of survival. But this was also good. At least it was better than everyone supporting Ren Zhongyuan. Then, if Ren Zhongyuan wanted to fan the flames and let them target Lin Yi, it would not be as easy as just now. Of course, not everyone was a fence-sitter. The faces of people like Yi Xiaotian and Yao Jelly were really wonderful. After taking the antidote refined by Lin Yi, they felt like they had eaten a fly. They felt sullen in their hearts, but they had to pinch their noses and swallow it. After everyone had successfully detoxified the poison, after a while, Ren Zhongyuan pushed the door and walked out with bloodshot eyes. In the crowd, he saw Lin Yi at a glance and his heart suddenly thumped. But when he saw that Lin Yi's hands were empty, he immediately raised his tail. Haha, I said that you were pretending to be mysterious. 100 pills in 2 hours? Now you don't even have one. If I were you, I would have jumped into the sea and committed suicide. How would you still have the face to stand here? There is really no one who is as thick-skinned as you. Ren Zhongyuan seized the opportunity to ridicule. Oh, then how about you? How many have you refined? Lin Yi asked faintly. Not more, not less, just one. I am a man of my word. Even if there is only one, it is much better than a liar like you who says 100 but can't take out one in the end. Ren Zhongyuan laughed proudly, raised the antidote pill high and said to the crowd, whoever wants this antidote pill, first come, first served. The next one will have to wait for another hour. Ren Zhongyuan thought that the moment he called out, everyone would rush over like a flock of ducks. Perhaps even Huiyudi would recognize his true colors and jump into his embrace. But in the end, it wasn't just Huiyudi that he had been thinking about all this time. Even the others weren't moved at all. At this moment, Ren Zhongyuan suddenly felt that something was wrong. Why was everyone looking at him with strange eyes? There was not the slightest excitement of seeing a life-saving straw. Instead, they felt like they were looking at an idiot. In particular, even the expressions of Yi Xiaotian and the others were abnormal. It was as if they were desperately trying to remind him of something, but he couldn't understand the specific meaning for a while. Ren Zhongyuan couldn't help but be a little confused. What kind of situation was this? Junior sister Yudi, I will make the decision to give this one to you first. I think you should understand my intention, right? Although Ren Zhongyuan muttered in his heart, he still put on a look of infatuation and passed through the crowd. He wanted to personally give the antidote pill to Huiyudi and take the opportunity to get intimate with her. Chapter 4772. Impossible? Ren Zhongyuan instantly jumped up. The more experienced he was, the more he knew the difficulty of this. This kind of thing was impossible no matter how he thought about it. But when he carefully examined everyone, he discovered that it was just as Lu Ziyu said, these people were all safe and sound. This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. Ren Zhongyuan was deeply affected, mumbling to himself as if he had gone mad. Just when everyone thought he was going to have a mental breakdown from the huge blow, this guy suddenly shouted, "Ah! I know the truth. It must be like this." Must be like this? Everyone looked at each other. I've said it before, refining 105th grade medicinal pills in 2 hours, even a 7th grade alchemist like my father can't do it, let alone this kid. He can take out 120 antidote pills at once. That can only mean one thing, he's long prepared these antidotes. Ren Zhongyuan hooted loudly. That's right, what Brother Ren said makes sense. He can do something that even a 7th grade alchemist can't do. Doesn't everyone feel that this matter in itself is a huge loophole? Lin Yi, I think you've been outsmarted by your own cleverness this time, taking out the evidence on your own initiative, hee. Yi Xiaotian immediately chimed in. The other East Continent disciples didn't join in the uproar. Since they'd already recognized that Lin Yi was a big shot, then they wouldn't rashly offend Lin Yi because of this kind of thing. After all, the poison had already been cured, and as for who the real culprit was, it really wasn't too important. Moreover, anyone with a bit of brain could see that there was something fishy about this. From the beginning to the end, the things that Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaotian said were all very far-fetched. They all had very obvious loopholes, but no one was willing to expose them face to face. However, there was still no lack of Ren Zhongyuan's underlings among the crowd, and they immediately hooted, strongly requesting Lu Ziyu to severely punish the real culprit. Lu Ziyu couldn't help but frown again. She thought that Lin Yi would be fine after he detoxified the poison for everyone, but she didn't expect this guy to be so sharp-tongued, and still not let go of Lin Yi. It was like a piece of dog skin plaster. The problem was that for those who didn't understand Lin Yi's strength, taking out 120 antidote pills in less than 2 hours was really a loophole. They couldn't let Lin Yi perform it again in front of everyone, right? For a moment, Lu Ziyu did not know how to defend Lin Yi. At this moment he heard Lin Yi chuckle, looking at Ren Zhongyuan as if he was looking at an idiot. Are you stupid? Do you really think that other people's brains are as useless as yours? If I wanted to harm someone, would I need to go through so much trouble? Then how did you do it? Ren Zhongyuan sneered. In the face of absolute power. All the so-called plots and schemes were nonsense. If I really wanted to harm people, this would do. As Lin Yi spoke, his figure suddenly flickered, and he suddenly appeared beside Ren Zhongyuan. He stretched out his hand and lightly patted him. Ren Zhongyuan suddenly turned pale with fright. Lin Yi's speed was too fast and too sudden, and he didn't even have time to react. He couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat, but fortunately, this kid didn't dare to kill people in front of them. Otherwise he would definitely suffer a big loss this time. However, before he could finish rejoicing, he shockingly discovered that there was actually an additional wave of extremely strange jinqi in his body. It was rampaging back and forth in his acupoints and meridians. Although it was not that terrifyingly destructive, he still could not avoid extreme pain. This time Ren Zhongyuan could no longer endure it. In front of everyone he rolled on the ground in pain, crying out loudly. Everyone was shocked, and they couldn't help but look at Lin Yi with even more awe. Just now they thought that he was a super alchemist, but they didn't expect that the West Island's son-in-law was also so powerful. He clearly looked like he was only in the middle stage of nascent soul. But he could easily play with Ren Zhongyuan in the palm of his hand. This was a consummate nascent soul expert who had won a place in the Golden Stage Academy competition. Yi Xiaotian and the others were even more shocked. Looking at Ren Zhongyuan rolling on the ground without a care for his image, they were helpless. Not only did they not dare to step forward to help, but they were so scared that they kept retreating, not daring to take even half a step closer to Lin Yi. Look how simple it is. I don't have any enmity with the other people on this ship. Even if I wanted to do something, I would just kill you. Why would I need to go through so much trouble by poisoning everyone? Lin Yi said lightly. Ah, what did you do to me? Ren Zhongyuan screamed in pain, looking at Lin Yi, who was very close to him with a terrified expression. He could only look at the people around him with a pleading gaze. If this pain continued, even if there weren't any fatal injuries in his body, he would definitely have a mental breakdown. However, everyone didn't even dare to take a step closer, let alone have the ability to save him. The only one who had the ability, other than Lin Yi himself, was probably Lu Ziyu, the big shot of the academy. Unfortunately, Lu Ziyu was currently filled with disgust towards him. As long as he didn't kill anyone, she wouldn't make a move to stop him at all. Instead, she felt very satisfied. This guy was getting more and more outrageous, and he should learn from his mistakes by suffering a bit. You're a pharmacist and an alchemist yourself, do you still need to ask me for such a small matter? Lin Yi shook his head in amusement. Looking at Ren Zhongyuan rolling on the ground, he shrugged and spread his hands. Isn't your father a 7th-grade alchemist? Go back and get him to help you take a look. You won't die for a while anyway, and since your father is so awesome, he definitely has a way. Ah. Ren Zhongyuan was instantly infuriated. This time around he didn't manage to put on an act, and instead got himself killed. Originally he could still put down his pride and ask Lu Ziyu for help, but with Lin Yi's words he was completely unable to say it. No matter how painful it was, he could only endure it himself. Seeing that Ren Zhongyuan was in so much pain that his face was pale, looking like he was exhaling more than he was inhaling, Lu Ziyu started to feel a little worried. She couldn't help but cast a questioning glance at Lin Yi. After all, if Ren Zhongyuan really died like this, it would be quite a big problem. Not only would she be punished, but the crucial point was that Lin Yi would also become the target of public criticism. The Ren clan's influence was really not to be underestimated. Lin Yi gave her a reassuring look. He had only given the other party a stream of 5 elements killing qi that didn't have any destructive power, and wouldn't cause any substantial fatal injuries. Of course, with the characteristics of 5 elements killing qi, having such a thing running around in one's body would definitely be extremely painful, and ordinary people wouldn't be able to endure it. Does everyone still feel that I'm the real culprit behind the poisoning? Lin Yi swept a glance at everyone present. Seeing that everyone had different expressions, he continued to speak calmly. Firstly, I'm the one responsible for transporting the food. This is indeed true, but since everyone has been poisoned by the heart-piercing sea anemone, it's a creature from the bottom of the sea, and I've never had the chance to go on a mission at sea before, so how could I have come into contact with it? Chapter 4773. Because of the ancient warship's array formation, any sea beasts with a bit of strength and intelligence would flee far away, so there was no danger in going to the sea. One of the tasks of the shift workers was to go fishing in the sea. This was what it meant to rely on the sea to survive. Only the sea had the freshest and most abundant ingredients. Without special permission, no one could go to the sea without permission. As Lin Yi said, the prerequisite to fishing out a poisonous creature like the heart-piercing sea anemone was to go to the sea for a task, and he clearly didn't have this condition. Secondly, even if I could really fish out the heart-piercing sea anemone and use it to poison everyone, would I use the antidote to save people? And specially prepare over 100 antidote pills in advance? Is there something wrong with my head? Lin Yi glanced at Ren Zhongyuan, who was rolling on the ground. You just want junior sister you died to think that you're stronger than me. You despicable, shameless villain. Even now, Ren Zhongyuan was still stubborn. He knew that if he changed his words and begged for mercy now, he would be completely ruined. He might as well grit his teeth and persevere, treating it as a ruse to gain people's trust. If it was just to prove that I'm stronger than you, a simple move would be enough. Why go through so much trouble? Do you think I'm a fool, or do you think everyone here is a fool? You're from East Continent Academy after all, but you're not even good at lying. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. Everyone else was also shaking their heads. Ren Zhongyuan's words were getting more and more ridiculous. Anyone with a brain wouldn't think like that. Even his loyal subordinates were too embarrassed to continue echoing him at this time. It was embarrassing to say it out loud. What if people really thought they were fools and laughed at them in the future? Now that things have come to this, I believe everyone has nothing to say. Not only is Lin Yi not the real culprit, he's also your savior. Do you still have any objections? Lu Ziyu immediately went along with the flow. Of course, no one dared to stand out. As for Ren Zhongyuan, who was rolling on the ground, he still wanted to say a few more words. However, with Lu Ziyu's aura suppressing him, and the 5 elements killing intent rampaging through his body, he was in so much pain that he couldn't say anything. Since that's the case, men, carry him away. This matter ends here. Lu Ziyu threw a glance at Ren Zhongyuan and said with a deep meaning in her words, "Let me remind you. Stay in your room and recuperate. If there's nothing important, don't come out casually. In particular, don't create any trouble for me. I'm the person in charge of the East region's diplomatic mission. Even if there was no evidence, he could still act first and report later. You better remember this." This time, anyone with a discerning eye could see that the real suspect of poisoning was not Lin Yi, but Ren Zhongyuan, who was the first to bring up the heart-piercing anemone. In all likelihood, this guy was the thief who cried, "Stop the thief," and wanted to kill Lin Yi with hatred in his heart. It was a pity that she could not find any concrete evidence. No matter how suspicious Ren Zhongyuan was, Lu Ziyu could not do anything to him for the time being. She could only use this excuse to put him under house arrest, so that he could not continue to stir up trouble. Since Lu Ziyu had already said so, this matter was considered settled. Although Yi Xiaotian and the others were unwilling, they could only follow Lu Ziyu's words and carry Ren Zhongyuan back to his room. After all, this old woman's fierce reputation in the East region was not just for show. If she was really forced to be ruthless, none of them would have a good ending. The group of East region disciples dispersed one after another. Lin Yi cupped his hands toward Lu Ziyu and said gratefully, Thank you, Vice Headmaster Liu, for helping me out of this predicament. Otherwise, I really wouldn't be able to explain myself today. This was the truth. Although Lin Yi had 100 ways to expose Ren Zhongyuan's framing, he had to first have the chance to do so. If Lu Ziyu had not helped him earlier, he would not even have had the chance to concoct pills and detoxify the poison. He didn't even give them the chance to concoct pills and detoxify the poison, so it was even more impossible for anyone to listen to him. With Ren Zhongyuan and Yi Xiaotian fanning the flames from behind, they might have already been forced to fight. You've got it backwards. I should be the one thanking you properly. If it weren't for you, I don't know how this matter would have ended. Lu Ziyu shook her head with some lingering fear. Fortunately, Lin Yi could really concoct so many detoxification pills. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. This time Ren Zhongyuan got away with it. It was really too hateful. If this was West Island, even if there was no evidence to prove that he poisoned someone, just the crime of framing would have been enough to put him in jail. Ning Xuefei said angrily. Yeah, this matter was obviously done by Ren Zhongyuan. Master, are we really going to let him off just like that? Wu Yudi was also somewhat unwilling. She hated Ren Zhongyuan to begin with, and this time he actually caused such a big incident to frame Lin Yi. This made her even more furious, and she wished she could execute this bastard on the spot. Without irrefutable evidence, we can't touch him, especially on this ship. Lu Ziyu sighed helplessly. She didn't want to spoil Ren Zhongyuan and his group of people. Unfortunately, although she was the person in charge of Dongzhou's diplomatic mission, her identity on this ancient battleship was still a guest. Those crew members would give in to Ren Zhongyuan, but they wouldn't give in to Lu Ziyu. Lin Yi looked at Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi's indignant expressions and couldn't help but be amused. He said indifferently, actually there's no need. That guy has already been punished. Look at him, he's in so much pain. Hearing this, the two women immediately smiled. When they thought of how Ren Zhongyuan was rolling on the ground just now, their anger was vented. Even Lu Ziyu covered her mouth and laughed. A wicked person would be tormented by another wicked person. Ren Zhongyuan had really kicked an iron plate this time. After being carried back to the room by Yi Xiaotian and the others, Ren Zhongyuan still had some backbone. He howled in pain as he chased all these people out. After all, his current appearance was really too embarrassing. With Yi Xiaotian and these underlings looking at him like this, how could he still be arrogant in the future? Detoxification. There must be a way to cure the poison. Ren Zhongyuan was hysterical alone in the room. Similarly, a wave of vital energy was flowing everywhere in his body. He subconsciously thought that this was a strange poison like the heart-piercing sea anemone. He was a pharmacist and an alchemist, and he even had a high-grade detoxification pill with him. No poison could trouble him, absolutely not. Without hesitation he swallowed the detoxification pill. At the same time he clenched his teeth and endured the intense pain. He circulated his mental cultivation method to dispel the vital energy. 2 hours passed. 4 hours passed. He tossed and turned like this until midnight. Only then did Ren Zhongyuan completely collapse because all of this was completely useless. That strange, ghost-like vital energy could not be dispelled at all. It was simply inexplicable. Not only was it as indistinct and difficult to capture as the heart-piercing sea anemone's poisonous gas, even if one could really catch it by chance, there was no way to dispel it. Generally speaking, whether it was the poisonous gas or the vital energy, once it could be successfully locked on, there would always be a way to dispel it little by little using one's own mental cultivation method. It was just a matter of how fast it was. Chapter 4774. However, Ren Zhongyuan discovered that this common knowledge was suddenly useless. It was because the stream of essential qi in his body was extremely strange, and simply could not be reasoned with. One moment it was of the metal element, the next moment it was of the wood element, and after a while, it became of the water element. When he finally made up his mind to refine it, it suddenly became of the fire element. There was no pattern to it at all, so how could he possibly neutralize it? Ren Zhongyuan was about to be tormented to the point of going crazy. He was already completely helpless against this strange stream of essential qi. The only thing that he could rejoice about was that up until now, there had not been any fatal injuries in his body. It was just that he would occasionally feel extreme pain, and when it did not flare up, it would be fine. He could still take a breather, and it seemed like he would not die anytime soon. However, Ren Zhongyuan still did not give up. Since he was unable to refine it, he could only place all his hopes on medicinal pills. Not only those legitimate antidotes, but any medicinal pills that had the slightest possibility of neutralizing it were consumed in one go. Even if they could not completely neutralize that strange stream of essential chi, it was good enough if they could only slightly reduce the pain. To anyone with common sense, Ren Zhongyuan's method was simply playing with his life. The consequences of consuming medicinal pills recklessly were often even more miserable than being poisoned. However, he had already lost his rationality from the intense pain, and could not care about these things. And what made Ren Zhongyuan overjoyed was that among the medicinal pills he had consumed recklessly, there was actually one that could be of use. It was a medicinal pill known as the turtle breath pill. As the name suggested, it could allow one to enter the state of turtle breath. However, after he consumed it, he did not enter the state of turtle breath, but the circulation of essential qi in his body stopped. In this way, that strange stream of essential qi seemed to have been suppressed as well. As long as this stream of essential qi did not move about recklessly, he would not feel any intense pain. The only side effect was that he similarly could not cultivate, much less circulate his mental cultivation method. This was originally a harmful medicinal pill, but he had used it as an antidote, and by a stroke of luck, he had used it correctly. By the time Ren Zhongyuan finished tormenting himself, the sky outside was already bright. After resting for a while, he immediately wanted to go out and take a stroll. At the very least, he had to act as if he had successfully neutralized that stream of essential qi so as to prevent others from looking down on him. Senior Marshal Brother Ren, it's better for you to stay in the room and recuperate in peace. This was specially instructed by Vice Headmaster Lu. Don't make things difficult for us. 2 disciples from the East Continent blocked his path at the door. No matter what, Lu Ziyu was a big shot in the academy. After all, there were still many disciples who obeyed her orders. Ren Zhongyuan was so angry that his face turned green. In his anger, the Jinqi in his body immediately showed signs of stirring, startling himself. He pointed at the 2 people at the door and was speechless for a long time. This ancient battleship was his territory, but he was actually being placed under house arrest in his own territory. Who could tolerate such a thing? All right. Good. All right. Ren Zhongyuan gritted his teeth and said 3 times. If it was before, he would have already stepped on these 2 bastards. But now he could only endure it. He said coldly, "Fine, I won't go out, but it's not a problem for others to come and see me, right? Go find Yi Xiaotian for me." The 2 disciples from the East Continent exchanged a glance. It was true that Lu Ziyu had not said such words. This Ren Zhongyuan was a person with a strong background, and they could not offend him too much. They immediately nodded and agreed. After a short while, Yi Xiaotian came to the room. Seeing Ren Zhongyuan lying lazily on the bed, he could not help but smile. "Brother Ren, you're really relaxed. Looks like there's no problem now?" It's just temporarily suppressing the poison gas. If I'm really fine, I'll be fine." "If I'm really fine, would those 2 dogs at the door still dare to stand there?" Ren Zhongyuan shook his head in annoyance. "Sai, now everything is decided by Lu Ziyu. After yesterday's incident, the others don't dare to make a sound. We can't do anything about it." Yi Xiaotian could only spread his hands helplessly. If the opponent was just Lin Yi, it would be fine. But now, a single word from Lu Ziyu could crush them to death. What else could they do? "I do have a way to suppress that old woman. How about this? Send a letter to me and everything will be resolved." Ren Zhongyuan pinched his chin and smiled. The corner of his lips once again revealed the proud smile from yesterday. At noon, the group of disciples from the East Continent, including Lu Ziyu, Lin Yi, and the others, were all eating in the canteen in 2s and 3s. Just then there was a sudden commotion at the entrance. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and was instantly shocked. A heavyweight uninvited guest had actually arrived. Captain Okuda. Hearing the low exclamations from the surrounding people, Lin Yi sized up the newcomer from afar. This was the first time he had seen this legendary captain with his own eyes. He had thick brows and big eyes and walked with a majestic gait. He looked like a heroic middle-aged man. To this ancient battleship, Lu Ziyu and the East Continent's diplomatic group were only temporary guests. The real controllers were its original crew, and the person in the lead was this Captain Okuda. However, the canteens of the East Continent's disciples and the battleship's crew were separate. This Okuda had never come to this canteen before. What was going on today? "Captain Okuda has graced us with your presence. We have been disrespectful." Lu Ziyu suppressed the suspicions in her heart and stood up to welcome him. The other party was the actual controller of the ancient battleship. Regardless of strength or status, he was not below her, the vice principal of the Morning Pride Academy. Even Lu Ziyu had to be polite to him. "Haha, this captain has come without notice. I hope Vice Principal Lu won't blame me. Come, come, come. Everyone sit down and continue eating. As Okuda spoke, he took the lead and sat down, not treating himself as an outsider at all. However, he was indeed the host here and there was nothing to criticize about that. Captain, you are a rare guest. May I know why you have come? Lu Ziyu replied in a neutral tone. Oh, I heard that there was some trouble here yesterday. Many disciples from the East Continent were poisoned, so I came to see everyone and see if there's anything I can help with. Okuda laughed heartily. Thank you for your concern, Captain. The poison of all the disciples from the East Continent has been successfully neutralized. Everything has returned to normal. Lu Ziyu smiled faintly. That's good. You are my distinguished guest. If anything were to happen to you, this captain would not be able to absolve himself from the blame. Okuda laughed, then asked, Huh? Why don't I see Zhong Yuan? This brat's father is an old friend of mine. It's rare for me to come here, but I didn't even greet him. Vice Principal Lu, can you get someone to call him over for a chat? Chapter 4775. At this point, Lu Ziyu could no longer keep Ren Zhongyuan under house arrest. He could only instruct, go and call Ren Zhongyuan over. Just say that Captain Okuda is here to visit him. A short while later, under everyone's gaze, Ren Zhongyuan arrived at the canteen in a pompous manner. His footsteps were filled with joy, showing off his prowess. Uncle Okuda, I'm really sorry for disturbing you. Your nephew apologizes. Ren Zhongyuan did not even look at Lu Ziyu and the others. He walked to Okuda's side and sat down as if there was no one else around. It seemed like the two of them had a pretty good relationship. What's there to apologize about? As an uncle, isn't it only right for me to visit my nephew? Ah. Okuda patted Ren Zhongyuan's shoulder and gestured to everyone. Everyone, don't just stand there. Come, let's eat. Ren Zhongyuan looked smugly at Lin Yi, who was sitting opposite him. His face was filled with provocation, and he even made a dangerous gesture of slitting his neck. He did not think much of Lu Ziyu at all. After all, on this ancient warship, Lu Ziyu was no match for Okuda. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at Okuda without batting an eyelid. With such a powerful backer suddenly appearing, things were going to be a little difficult to handle. It seemed like Okuda would definitely not let the matter rest and would definitely make use of this opportunity to stir up trouble again. As expected, they had only eaten a few mouthfuls when Okuda suddenly said, Vice Dean Lu, other than coming here to visit the East Continent's disciples, there's another important matter I want to discuss with you. Captain, feel free to speak your mind. Lu Ziyu exchanged glances with Lin Yi and the others, his heart skipping a beat. It's like this. We have a lookout position on the warship, responsible for monitoring dangerous situations. I don't think I need to explain the importance of this position. Without a lookout, we won't be able to continue sailing at sea. Unfortunately, our original lookout has fallen ill. In order to not waste time at sea, I want to choose one of you East Continent's disciples as a substitute. Of course, the prerequisite is that they have sufficient sailing experience, Okuda said meaningfully. This. Lu Ziyu was slightly taken aback and was about to ask everyone who had sailing experience. However, before she could say anything, she was interrupted by Okuda. Damn. I heard that the treasure ship from the North Island encountered pirates in the sea fog when it was on its way to the West Island. At the critical moment, a disciple named Lin Yi stepped forward bravely and personally took the helm to avert the danger. I think this young man is good. I'll choose him. Okuda Ba insisted. As soon as he said that, everyone's gazes instantly focused on Lin Yi. Some people sympathized with him and of course there were also people who rejoiced in his misfortune. Everyone could see that Okuda Ba was standing up for Ren Zhongyuan this time, and his target was Lin Yi. Looking at Ren Zhongyuan's complacent smile as if he had succeeded in his scheme, Lin Yi remained unmoved. Hui Yudi and Ning Xuefei, on the other hand, were secretly anxious, and both looked towards Lu Ziyu for help. This so-called danger lookout was definitely a pit of fire. Once he agreed, Lin Yi would definitely suffer greatly. Captain Okuda Ba, Lin Yi is a new disciple, and he's also the prince consort of the West Island. Isn't it a little inappropriate to suddenly let him take up such an important position? Why don't you consider other disciples? Lu Ziyu argued. Vice Dean Lu, don't blame me for not giving you face. On this battleship, my orders are above everything else. As he spoke, Okuda Ba's aura suddenly changed, and an overwhelming pressure instantly pressed down on everyone's heads. Lin Yi was the first to bear the brunt of it, and when he heard Okuda Ba's cold voice, he said, "He doesn't want to do it? Very well then. Men, throw him overboard." Everyone's countenances instantly paled. Just a moment ago he had been laughing heartily, yet in the blink of an eye he wanted to throw someone overboard. This captain really changed his attitude faster than flipping the pages of a book. Stop. Lu Ziyu's countenance changed, and she similarly unleashed an overwhelming aura to stand against him. Although she was not as strong as him in this place, Lin Yi was someone whom she had acknowledged long ago. It wouldn't be so easy for him to take Lin Yi away. The atmosphere suddenly became extremely tense. Once these two big shots were to stand against each other, the deterrence and destructive prowess would be unimaginable. Although there were no weaklings among the people present, they would really not be able to withstand such repercussions. Just the pressure from the aura alone was enough to make them unable to withstand it. At this moment, Lin Yi suddenly stood up, and his gaze landed on Okuda Ba's face in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. He said calmly, "Hold on. Isn't it just a lookout? No problem. Since it's a job for the entire battleship, then it's also for ourselves. I'll accept this job." The moment he said this, everyone present was astonished. Ren Zhongyuan even smirked coldly when he heard this. Even at the brink of death, he still did not forget to elevate himself. At this moment he was still thinking of putting on an act. What a fucking fool. Good, very good. You have ambition. Okuda Ba instantly retracted his aura, pointed at Lin Yi and laughed out loud. I, the captain, like young people with guts. However, I'll say this first. Once you're on the lookout, you'll be treated the same as the other crew members. To me, the sea is a battlefield. If you really make any mistakes, you'll be dealt with according to military law. These words frightened Ning Xuefei and Hui Yudi. This was basically forcing Lin Yi into a dead end. Usually, even if he made some mistakes, nothing could be done about it. After all, he was a temporary substitute from the East Continent. However, if he were to be dealt with according to military law, all his paths of retreat would be blocked. At that time, a single word from Okuda Ba would be able to take Lin Yi's life, and even Lu Ziyu would not be able to stop him. Lu Ziyu's brows furrowed tightly, and she was just about to find an excuse to take back this job of causing death. However, it was a pity that Okuda Ba did not give her the chance to do so. After he finished speaking, he stood up and left, leaving behind a string of hearty but vicious laughter. Hurry up and go to work after lunch. We're all counting on you, the lookout, to protect and escort us. Don't make any mistakes, ha. Ren Zhongyuan laughed complacently as well. As expected, once a great god like Okuda Ba took action, someone like Lin Yi did not even have the slightest ability to retaliate. Just a few words from him were enough to send him into the fire pit. This feeling could only be described with one word: awesome. Master, what should we do now? Hui Yudi anxiously asked Lu Ziyu for help. There was still some room to turn things around now, but once Lin Yi really went up to the lookout, it would only be a matter of a few words for him to be taken advantage of. By then, everything would really be too late. Chapter 4776. Wait a minute, Deputy Dean Lu, thank you for your kindness, but you don't have to be so troublesome. It's just a dangerous situation, look out. I'm experienced in this kind of thing and it's not a problem. Lin Yi stopped her with a faint smile. Really? Lu Ziyu looked at him suspiciously, wanting to say something but stopping on second thought. She had heard that Lin Yi controlled the treasure ship of the North Island to get out of danger, but in the eyes of most people, including her, it could only be attributed to Lin Yi's good luck. After all, everyone had their own specialties. If he was not a really experienced old shipwright, he couldn't be a dangerous situation lookout at all. You'd better not force yourself. With your ability, you just need to monitor the dangerous situation and I believe there's no problem. But they obviously want to find fault with you and it's hard to guard against them, Hui Yudi said worriedly. Yeah, if you must go, take me with you. I'll go wherever you go. Ning Xuefei said decisively. Feifei, don't mess around. I'm just going to be a lookout, it's not as serious as you think it is. Plus, they won't let you go up to the lookout tower. Lin Yi laughed when he saw the girls follow the chicken. If she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a chicken, if she marries a dog, then so be it. Right, Feifei, you really can't go. Your identity is too sensitive, and no one dares to let you go to the watchtower. I won't allow it either. You'd better stay with us. Lu Ziyu stopped her immediately. If something happened to Lin Yi, she would be sad, but it was only limited to personal feelings, and it wouldn't have too much impact on the overall situation. But Ning Xuefei was different. Once the successor of West Island had an accident here, West Island and Dongzhou State would definitely fall out with each other instantly. Then West Island and Dongzhou State would definitely fall out with each other instantly. By then, thousands of people would die because of this. This was related to the overall situation and there was no room for any mistakes. In fact, Lu Ziyu believed that even Okuda Dam, who deliberately targeted Lin Yi, would never dare to let anything happen to Ning Xuefei. Otherwise, in order to appease the anger of West Island, he, the captain, would definitely be pushed out as a scapegoat, and there would be no chance for him to survive. But Ning Xuefei still held Lin Yi's hand tightly. You wanted to say something more. There are no buts. There's no room for discussion on this matter. Your mother entrusted you to me. I definitely won't let you take the risk, Lu Ziyu interrupted. Seeing Ning Xuefei's helpless expression, Lin Yi smiled and patted her hand, comforting her. It's not like you don't know my strength. This small matter can't stump me. Don't worry, Feifei. Then, Ning Xuefei hesitated for a long time. He nodded helplessly and said, All right, I'll listen to you and Aunt Lu. However, if you're in danger, I'll be the first to rush over. The observation deck is not a guillotine. It's not that dangerous. Don't worry. Lin Yi laughed. After much persuasion, he finally managed to persuade Ning Xuefei. However, when he turned his head, Huiyuti suddenly bit her lips and said, Feifei can't go. I'll go with you. Lin Yi was instantly speechless. He had finally managed to persuade one, yet another came. It was really asking for his life. He could only say helplessly, I'm going to monitor the situation, not to go on an outing. What are you going to do? I can help you. Huiyuti said with a serious expression. Help me? How can you help me? Have you done this before? Lin Yi couldn't help but ask curiously. Not really. Huiyuti thought for a while, then said, But my nose is very sensitive. I can more or less be of some use. Lin Yi suddenly didn't know what to say. This little girl's train of thought was really wild and imaginative. Which danger lookout relied on their nose to do their work. Helpless, Lin Yi could only turn to look at Lu Ziyu. He hoped that this master of hers would come forward to persuade her. In the end, he didn't expect Lu Ziyu to actually nod and say, All right. You go with Lin Yi. Be careful. Oh. Hearing that, Lin Yi instantly choked. Not only was Huiyuti's train of thought unique, even her master was a kindred spirit. Indeed, like teacher, like disciple. Actually, the reason why Lu Ziyu agreed so readily was because she wanted to make it up to Lin Yi. Lin Yi and Ning Xuefei were both people that Ning Shangling had entrusted to her to take care of. In the end, because she wasn't forceful enough, Lin Yi ended up in danger. Letting Huiyuti accompany him would at least be able to take care of him. On the other hand, it was because she could see through her precious disciple's thoughts, so she decided to help him. Hearing their conversation from afar, especially when he heard that Huiyuti was going to accompany Lin Yi to the observation deck, Ren Zhongyuan, who was still feeling smug, was instantly enraged. He was clearly the one who pushed Lin Yi into the fire pit, so why did he inexplicably create a chance for him to be alone with Huiyuti? The observation deck was high up, almost completely isolated from the people below, and no one would disturb them. Lin Yi and Huiyuti were basically in a world of the two of them. How was this a fire pit? It was simply a land of gentle beauties. However, Ren Zhongyuan had no way to stop them. He could only grit his teeth and console himself. Go on. I'll let you see Lin Yi for another 2 days. In less than 2 days this guy will be a dead man. After lunch, Lin Yi and Huiyuti went to the crew's work area under the gazes of Lu Ziyu and Ning Xuefei. The first mate of this ancient warship glanced at the two of them. It seemed that Okuda had already informed him beforehand. He lazily reclined on a chair and asked, Didn't you say that there's only one substitute lookout? Why are there two? This is my assistant. Lin Yi replied calmly. Huiyuti insisted on coming along no matter what, and she even had Lu Ziyu's support. He had no other choice. Assistant? The first mate sized up Huiyuti with a slanted gaze and said with an evil smile, What assistant? An assistant to liven things up at night? I have to say it's quite boring up there. If you don't find something to do, you'll go crazy. Seeing that you're so pitiful, I'll be your assistant. These words caused Huiyuti's face to turn red, and even Lin Yi felt a little embarrassed. He really hadn't thought about this. The observation deck is up there. You guys go up there yourselves. I don't need to explain the duties of this position, right? Report the dangerous situation in real time, and give timely and accurate instructions to avoid danger. If there's even the slightest mistake, The first mate looked at Lin Yi with pity. The latter half of the sentence did not need to be said. It was nothing more than if he had something on them, Okuda would definitely take the opportunity to punish them. Because of Lin Yi's negligence, the entire ship's crew would be in danger, so it would be useless no matter who tried to explain. Military law was not something that could be casually said. Chapter 4777. Hee, what do you think? The first mate smiled but did not say anything. In fact, Okuda Ba's claim that the lookout was sick was pure nonsense. Even if Okuda Ba agreed to give such an important position to a layman, the other crew members would never agree to it. After all, who would dare to put their lives in the hands of a layman? The lookout was actually hiding on the backup lookout. Lin Yi was just a prank. No one would really take him seriously. Lin Yi and Hoi Yudi turned around and went up to the lookout. It was the highest point. Standing there, they had the best view of everything. As long as the visibility was good enough, not only could they clearly see the ancient warship below, but they could also see the sea within a radius of hundreds of miles. Of course, if there was fog, then there was nothing they could do. However, the weather these 2 days had been great. The sky was clear for miles and there wasn't even a single cloud in the sky, let alone sea fog. Lin Yi and Hoi Yudi were just enjoying the scenery. The scenery here was unique and they couldn't see it from other places. It wasn't a wasted trip. They did not encounter any danger during the past 2 days. Naturally, Lin Yi did not need to issue any evasive orders. He felt quite comfortable watching the scenery and chatting with Hoi Yudi. Hoi Yudi also enjoyed this. Being able to enjoy the sea breeze while snuggling up with Lin Yi was the most wonderful thing she could think of. However, she also knew that this would not last for long. Even if Lin Yi could not let Okuda Ba catch him, the two would have to be separated when they reached the East Continent. It was unknown if they would even see each other again in the future, let alone spend time together. After nightfall, the sky was filled with stars and the sea was dotted with stars. All this dreamy scenery set off the atmosphere of the two's world especially warm and romantic. The two, who were already snuggling up to each other, could not help but feel a little charming. Lin Yi. Hoi Yudi seemed to have thought of something. Her cheeks blushed as she called out softly. What happened? Lin Yi turned his head to look at her, then hurriedly turned his head back, not daring to look again. At this moment, under the beautiful night sky, Hoi Yudi's temperament was both pure and charming. The two intertwined to form a strange temptation. Even with Lin Yi's self-control, he almost couldn't control himself. The poison on my leg seems to be relapsing again. Hoi Yudi bit her lips, lowered her head and said shyly, Can you help me suck it again? Lin Yi was stunned. The poison had been sucked clean a long time ago, how could it suddenly relapse? Under his gaze, Hoi Yudi's face turned even redder. Her originally fair neck became an alluring shade of crimson. She urged in a low voice, Hurry up! Lin Yi speechlessly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He finally understood what Hoi Yudi was hinting at. This girl couldn't have been reminded by the first mate's joke, right? The atmosphere fell into silence. Facing Hoi Yudi's cute and shy expression, Lin Yi suddenly felt a trace of tenderness in his heart. He forcefully suppressed his instinctive impulse and said with difficulty, Yudi, I can't give you any promises. After we go to the Eastern Continent we might. I don't care. Hoi Yudi used her hand to cover Lin Yi's mouth. The two of them were only a finger's distance away from each other. They could both feel each other's hot breath. Their breathing and state of mind were already in chaos. Just as Lin Yi was about to say something, Hoi Yudi suddenly made an extremely bold move. She actually reached out and pressed Lin Yi's head to the bottom of her skirt. After tonight there might not be another chance like this. As a girl, she had already thrown caution to the wind. Smelling the familiar fragrance of the other party's body, Lin Yi's heart was in a mess. She had already done this, what should he do? At this moment, an extremely urgent warning sound came from the jade pendant on his chest. Lin Yi immediately quivered and hurriedly stopped Hoi Yudi's bold move. In a hurry, he glanced at the sea in front of him and hurriedly activated the sound transmission array on his hand and shouted, Change direction. There's danger. At this moment Okuda Dam and the real danger lookout were on another backup lookout. When they heard Lin Yi shout through the sound transmission array, they were both stunned. There's danger? In shock, the two of them hurriedly looked around carefully. Although visibility was not high at night, with the help of the starry sky and the glowing creatures in the sea, they could still clearly see the situation within a few miles. Everything seemed calm and peaceful. Danger my ass. The lookout and Okuda Dam looked at each other and angrily scolded, it's a false alarm. This kid really doesn't know anything. What a fucking scam. Okuda Dam's expression was also a little ugly. According to his original plan, he had planned to use Lin Yi's ignorance. If he really encountered danger, he would definitely not be able to detect it in advance, let alone give a timely and accurate warning. Although they were on the backup lookout, if the situation was not particularly critical, they would not make a sound. This way they could use their own trick to trick Lin Yi. After all, for a supergiant like the ancient warship, a small danger would not cause any damage at all. It could be easily crushed. This way not only would there not be any accidents, but it would also give them an excuse to punish Lin Yi. In the end, the two of them did not expect such a situation to occur. There was clearly no danger, but this kid Lin Yi was shouting in the voice transmission formation, causing them to be worried for nothing. This was simply a false report. In the voice transmission formation, Lin Yi was still repeatedly warning them, but there was no response from below. Everyone knew that the real danger monitoring the situation was the second lookout, which was now a stage. Before the second lookout spoke, no one would care about him. At this moment, Okuda Dam's voice came from the voice transmission formation. He said coldly, "What are you shouting for? Do you know how much of a loss you'll bring to us if you make a wrong judgment? Once we deviate from the established route, it's very likely that we will hit the reef, and it will consume a lot of extra spiritual energy. It might even cause the formation to not have enough energy to gather. Can you bear the consequences? Quickly change the direction. There's danger ahead." Lin Yi ignored him and continued to shout. Although the others on the warship could not hear him, every place with a voice transmission formation, including the control room, could hear his voice. "Kid, how dare you shout here? Do you know what the punishment is for lying about a military situation? Do you really want to die?" Okuda Dam was instantly enraged. Chapter 4778. He wouldn't get angry because of such a small character, but now he really wanted to kill this kid. Seeing that the people below were still indifferent, Lin Yi shook his head speechlessly. Ignoring Okuda Ba's threat, he gathered his vital energy and roared, "Everyone be on guard. Protect yourselves." His voice was like a clap of thunder. With the help of various voice transmission formations, Lin Yi's voice was heard throughout the ancient battleship. Not only could the crew hear it, but even the disciples of the East Continent in the living area could hear it. All of a sudden the entire battleship was in chaos. After shouting, Lin Yi could no longer care about anything else, let alone the enraged Okuda Ba. He protected Hoi Yudi and escaped from the observation deck. The observation deck was a good place to look at the scenery when there was nothing going on, but when there was danger the observation deck was often the first to suffer. Lin Yi did not have the habit of holding on under a dangerous wall. When Okuda Ba saw this scene from the second lookout tower, he flew into a rage. He had clearly heard his warning, but this brat still dared to create chaos so brazenly. Now he even wanted to escape. This was intolerable. Even if it wasn't for Ren Zhongyuan, he would definitely tear this brat into pieces. In his rage, Okuda Ba stood on the top of the second observation deck and released his aura. In a trance, even the sky seemed to change color. This time he planned to take down Lin Yi personally and publicly punish him as a warning to others. However, just as Okuda Ba was about to launch an attack, the official lookout on the second observation deck suddenly had a change of expression. He exclaimed, "Captain, this is bad. There's a group of sea beasts ahead." "What?" Okuda Ba was so shocked that he staggered and quickly looked at the sea in front of him. Everything was pretty much the same as before. The surroundings were still calm and peaceful, and there were no signs of surging waves or the so-called horde of sea beasts. The only thing that was slightly strange was that the sea in front of them was pitch black, with not a single ray of light to be seen. Okuda Ba did not react for a moment. He was not a lookout, so he was not that sensitive to these clues. However, he was an expert, a giant-level super expert. Without hesitation he instantly released his divine sense. At this time, without the interference of the sea fog, with Okuda Ba's strength, his divine sense could cover the sea tens of miles away. This time his expression suddenly changed. There really was a group of sea beasts. 20 miles away, an extremely large group of sea beasts was approaching at a rapid speed. There were at least hundreds of sea beasts, and their speed was unparalleled. Okuda Ba was shocked. He had been sailing on the sea for hundreds of years and had been a captain for dozens of years. However, he had never seen such a terrifying group of sea beasts. Every sea beast here was at least at the original infant stage. Profound Ascension stage beasts could be seen everywhere. There were even several mountain opening stage beasts. What was even more shocking was that the group of sea beasts was rushing directly towards the battleship. It did not seem like they were just passing by. Instead, they were directly targeting the battleship. What was going on? As the ultimate weapon of the endless sea, the ancient battleship was set up with the highest level of beast-frightening array. Normally, no sea beasts would dare to approach within 100 miles. Even the sea beasts at the mountain opening stage would not dare to provoke them. But why did it suddenly fail this time? In the blink of an eye, the group of sea beasts had shortened from 20 miles away to 10 miles away. Their speed was so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. The originally calm sea was already surging with waves, and in an instant, a monstrous wave was formed, crushing towards the huge ancient battleship. There was no time to think about it. Okuda Ba quickly returned to the number 2 lookout and shouted, "Everyone listen up. Activate the defensive array, activate the offensive array, everyone get ready for battle." At this time it was impossible to dodge. Such a huge monster could not change its course so easily. Unless they reacted when Lin Yi gave the first warning, they would still be able to make it in time. With the super powerful thrust of the battleship's power array, if they listened to Lin Yi's warning and changed the rudder to escape at full speed, they would be able to shake off the group of sea beasts as long as they could reach them at full speed. However, it was too late now. After hearing Okuda Ba's order, everyone on the battleship became more and more chaotic. The East Continent disciples did not know what to do. Fortunately, the original crew members were well trained. After a moment of confusion, they all went into battle positions. All kinds of defensive and offensive arrays were activated in an instant. Layers of colorful lights stacked on top of each other. It was a spectacular scene. Boom. The ancient battleship suddenly shook. This was the first wave of sea beasts' attack. No one knew why these sea beasts would do such a suicidal action. In the face of such a huge ship like the ancient battleship, even the nascent soul stage sea beasts could not pose any threat to it. Even those powerful profound ascending stage sea beasts could only wear down the battleship's defensive array. They could not even attack the battleship itself, let alone cause any damage. The real threat was the few mountain opening stage sea beasts that were mixed in the huge group of sea beasts. Once they started to attack with full force, especially after their weakness was tested, it was hard to say how long the battleship's defensive array could last. Okuda Ba quickly retreated back to the command room. Although he was shocked, he still appeared calm at this time. All kinds of orders were issued to every crew member in an orderly manner. His calmness greatly influenced everyone. They gradually got rid of their panic and their morale soared. Lin Yi and Hui Yudi had also sneaked into the command room. Seeing Okuda Ba's performance, they could not help but secretly nod. A person who could sit in the position of the captain could not be useless. Okuda Ba also noticed Lin Yi and Hui Yudi. He frowned and was about to chase them away. However, when he thought of his warning just now, he immediately swallowed his words. "Captain, the first wave of sea beasts attack has ended. There are about 40 to 50 nascent soul stage sea beasts. The defensive array is undamaged." A familiar voice sounded in the transmission array. Lin Yi could tell that it was the lazy first mate from before. It seemed that he had gone to take command. Chapter 4779. Roger. Everyone responded in unison. The view of the command room was not as good as the observation deck, but it was already the second best place in the entire warship. Moreover, the sea beasts were already very close. At this time there was no need to look from afar. Standing in the command room, one could clearly see the sea beasts in front of them. After the first wave of cannon fodder test ended, the sea beasts finally began to move. This time there were hundreds of sea beasts, and nearly half of them were profound ascending stage sea beasts. Each of them had a suicidal attack, and they desperately rushed towards the ancient warship. This situation made Lin Yi feel a little strange. At the nascent soul stage and profound ascending stage, sea beasts' intelligence was already very high. It was not strange that the weak were prey to the strong, but they actually launched a suicidal attack. This was too unbelievable. "Kid, today's situation is not normal. I feel that a big guy is targeting you." At this time, the ghost's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. "Big guy? How big is it?" Lin Yi quickly asked. His first thought was that the giant electric eel and the 5 poison dragon were super existences. If the opponent was really a terrifying sea beast that was above the sea-splitting stage, then today's situation would be really dangerous. Even the ancient warship might not be able to protect them. "It's not as big as you think, but it's not small either. If the command is good, the chances of winning are 50-50. The ghost laughed with interest. Linny couldn't help but look at Okuda Ba. He hoped that this guy could withstand it. Otherwise, if the ancient warship was really broken or even sunk, then it would be all over. Boom. The warship suddenly shook again. Everyone's face changed, including Okuda Ba. The first impact just now was only a slight shake, but the feeling this time was obviously different. Not only was the impact force far more than 100 times, but it seemed that the sea beast had also found a flaw. There was only one wave of probing attacks before, but this time the impact was continuous, and it was getting more and more intense. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. If this continued, the consequences would be unimaginable. Something's wrong. These bastards have someone commanding them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to find the connecting point so easily. Damn bastards. Okuda Ba's face turned ashen. With the level of the ancient battleship's defensive formation, it was enough to easily block the life-risking attacks of the mountain opening stage sea beasts. However, it wasn't truly flawless because with the enormous tonnage of the battleship, it was impossible for any single defensive formation to completely cover it. The only way was to stack multiple defensive formations on top of each other to achieve the effect of complete coverage. However, in this way the defensive strength of the entire battleship would inevitably be uneven. Among them, the defensive strength of the connection point was the weakest. Although it could still block the all-out attacks of the mountain opening stage sea beasts, a flaw was ultimately a flaw. If the sea beasts were allowed to continue attacking like this, there was a possibility that the battleship would be overturned. This discovery really made everyone shudder with fear. Such a huge group of sea beasts was already very frightening. If there was a mastermind behind the scenes who could see through the connection point with a single glance, just the thought of it was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Prepare the attack formation. Okuda Ba suddenly ordered in a deep voice. Everyone was shocked, but their spirits were lifted. They excitedly rubbed their palms together and got into position. The amount of spiritual chi needed to activate the attack formation far exceeded that of all the defensive formations combined. Furthermore, the huge commotion it created could attract powerful sea beasts from all directions. Therefore, under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be activated easily unless it was a matter of life and death. Although it wasn't a matter of life and death yet, if they couldn't quickly stop the attack of the sea beasts, the defensive formation would be destroyed sooner or later. Instead of sitting on the ground and waiting for death, it was better to put everything on the line. This guy was really decisive. Linny looked at Okuda Ba in surprise. He then turned his gaze to the sea in front of him. At this time, all kinds of attack formations were being prepared. The entire battleship was like an unparalleled ancient beast, emitting a terrifying pressure that could destroy heaven and earth. As if they were frightened by the pressure of the attack formation, some of the nascent soul stage sea beasts at the front line suddenly stopped attacking. It seemed like they had the intention to retreat. They all desperately retreated as if their fear of death was no less than that of humans. However, before everyone could let out a cry of joy, an extremely cruel scene unfolded in front of them. These nascent soul stage sea beasts that were scared off were instantly torn into pieces by the sea beasts behind them. Not a single one of them was spared. The entire sea was filled with the smell of blood that soared to the heavens. Even the night sky was dyed red. Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't speak for a long time. Because of this cruel and inexplicable smell of blood, the sea beasts became crazier and more hysterical. Not only did they not have the slightest intention of retreating, they became even more ferocious. Even the few mountain opening stage sea beasts mixed in with the sea beasts also joined in the attack. Just now was only the second wave of attack. With the well-trained team under Okuda Ba, they could at least calmly deal with it. However, now it suddenly became a fight to the death. The whole situation suddenly went out of control. Attack. Target the mystical ascending stage sea beasts. All teams attack freely. Okuda Ba immediately ordered. The nascent soul stage sea beasts could not affect the defense formation at all. The opponent's main force was the mystical ascending stage sea beasts. As long as they could be killed, their chances of winning would be greatly increased. Roger. Listening to the unified reply in the sound transmission formation, Lin Yi only saw a dazzling scene in front of him. Dozens of light beams that were visible to the naked eye instantly disappeared into the sea beasts. It seemed to be silent, but the next moment, Lin Yi suddenly opened his eyes wide, unable to hide the shock in his eyes. Wherever the light beam passed, all the sea beasts instantly turned into a cloud of blood mist. The dignified mystical ascending stage sea beasts did not even have the slightest strength to resist. they did not even have the time to dodge. As for the surrounding nascent soul stage sea beasts, they could not even be counted as cannon fodder. Looking at the hellish sea of blood in front of him, looking at the huge group of sea beasts roaring in the blood sea, Lin could not help but take a deep breath. His heart was filled with incomparable shock. This was the invincible warship that galloped in the endless sea. In just one wave of attack, half of the mainstay mystical ascending stage sea beasts were killed. When this invincible warship showed its ferocious claws, even the endless sea was no longer so daunting. Just like now, people here were cheering, it had become a crazy playground. Chapter 4780. Morale was greatly boosted, and all the offensive arrays were quickly preparing for the second wave of attack. However, just as they were about to launch another massacre without any suspense, the mountain opening stage existences that had been hiding among the sea beasts suddenly broke out of the water and revealed their true faces to everyone. Everyone instantly cried out in surprise. At this moment, there were a total of 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts that had suddenly appeared. Deep sea mad shark, netherworld ghost mother, hooking soul fish, thousand-legged tyrant crab and humpback mountain whale. Every one of them was a famous overlord of the sea. Encountering any one of them would be a disaster for human cultivators. Ordinary treasured ships couldn't withstand their attacks. Fortunately, this was an ancient warship. But even an ultimate weapon like the ancient warship could not help but feel pressured when facing 5 overlords of the sea. Everyone, including Okuda Ba, felt a little breathless. Don't worry about them, kill the mysterious ascending stage first, kill them all. Okuda Ba suddenly reacted and yelled at the sound transmission array. Only by killing all the profound ascending stage sea monsters could they slowly deal with the 5 overlords of the sea. Otherwise, once they got into a heated battle, those profound ascending stage sea monsters would definitely destroy the defense array bit by bit and become the last straw that broke the camel's back. This was the most correct response, but unfortunately before Okuda Ba could finish his sentence, a giant figure the size of a mountain had already slammed into the warship. With a loud bang, the ancient warship was actually knocked to the side by a few inches. Such a force was simply unimaginable. Humpback whale. Okuda Ba gritted his teeth and said the name of this giant monster. This was the largest existence in the sea. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that every humpback whale could move mountains and overturn seas with just a casual move, because they themselves were moving mountains. Just the size of the humpback whale had brought unparalleled psychological pressure to everyone. But this was not the worst part. The worst part was the urgent report that came from the sound transmission array. Captain, this monster blocked the attack. We can't lock on to the profound ascending stage sea monsters. He's just a meat shield. When Lin heard this, he immediately felt that things were not looking good. They had just gained a slight advantage. As a result, the other side immediately blocked the humpback whale with its thick skin and flesh. It was obvious that this mountain opening stage sea beast was just a chess piece of the opponent. At this moment, everyone was looking at Okuda Dam. At this time, he had to make a decision quickly without any hesitation. His next order would directly affect everyone's life and death. With the humpback whale's thick hide, there was no need to fear it at all. Even if dozens of holes were blasted into it, that would only be scratching an itch. If they didn't fight back, they would immediately fall into a passive position. They could only take a beating and not fight back. No matter how strong the defensive formation was, it wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Stop the attack. Okuda Ba ordered. Captain, should we activate the 10,000-mile formation? The first mate's voice sounded from the sound transmission array. Everyone's eyes flashed and they nodded in unison. What's the 10,000-mile formation? Lin whispered to Hoyuti. The 10,000-mile formation refers to 10,000 miles a day. It can increase the speed of the battleship to the maximum in the shortest time possible. This is the final trump card for escape. The price is that it will consume all of the ship's stored spiritual energy. At this time, the person who answered Lin wasn't Hoyuti, but Okuda Ba. Lin couldn't help but look at him in surprise. This guy was clearly trying to trick him, but he still had the mood to answer his question. It was really strange. After saying this, Okuda Ba didn't look at Lin anymore. Instead, he frowned and fell into deep thought. The veins on his forehead bulged and cold sweat flowed. It was obvious that this was a difficult choice. The others didn't dare to breathe too loudly. The command room and all the other battle positions that were connected to the sound transmission array were extremely tense. Just as Okuda Ba had said, the 10,000-mile formation was the last trump card for escape. The 10,000-mile array was his final trump card for escaping. Once it was activated, there would be no more spiritual chi stored. Whether or not he could escape safely would depend on the will of the heavens. They don't have good intentions. If we don't fight, we'll be courting death. We can't escape, Linny suddenly said. He knew that with his status, no one would listen to him. If it was under other circumstances, he might not be willing to say this. Unfortunately, everyone was in the same boat. If the ship was destroyed, he, Ning Xuefei, and the others would be implicated. He had to think of a way to dispel this stupid idea. As expected, the surrounding people looked at Lin Yi with more disgust. This kid clearly didn't know anything, but he jumped out at such a critical time to disturb people's morale. They were facing 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts, and they even had the humpback whale as a meat shield. If they didn't escape now, were they going to wait for death here? Why? Unexpectedly, Okuda didn't fly into a rage. Instead, he turned to look at Lin Yi with a serious expression. He actually planned to seriously consider his opinion. Lin Yi was an outsider, but with the warning he'd given earlier, even if Okuda felt a little embarrassed, he'd acknowledged Lin Yi's strength in his heart. This wasn't the time for personal grudges, and they had to work together. If it's just these 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts, we should be able to escape even if it's a little troublesome. But what if the big guy we're facing isn't them? Lin Yi slowly glanced at everyone. Everyone was shocked. They immediately looked at each other in panic. This kid really didn't stop until he shocked them. The 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts in front of them were already giving them a lot of pressure. Could it be that there was something even more ferocious behind them? You noticed it too? Okuda Ba's rhetorical question made everyone even more shocked. It meant that even an experienced captain like him felt that there was another ferocious god behind them. Lin Yi couldn't help but look up to this guy. He only found out about it because of the ghost's reminder. He didn't expect this guy, whom he thought was a good-for-nothing captain, to be able to sense it too. As expected, no one who could sit in such a position was simple. I admit that you're not simple, but don't look down on me too much. Okuda Ba was very dissatisfied with Lin Yi's surprised look. He coldly snorted. I've been on the sea for more than 300 years and I've controlled this ship for 75 years. Even if I haven't seen 100% of the battles on the sea, I've at least seen 80% of them. Although the scale of the sea beast this time is larger than usual, if there's no one behind them, just these 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts dare to challenge the ship? I'll dig my eyeballs out and step on them. Chapter 4781. No matter what, they couldn't afford to panic. Otherwise, if they didn't have a unified opinion, it would be a fatal flaw. What you two mean is, even if we can get rid of these 5 mountain opening stage sea beasts, we can't get rid of the guy behind them? The first mate gasped. Everyone turned to look at Lin Yi and Okuda Ba. This was the question they wanted to know the most. I haven't seen the 10,000-mile formation before, so I can't comment. Lin Yi shook his head and analyzed, but since they dare to target our warship, they must be confident. After all, sea beasts at this level are not idiots. I don't know. My intuition tells me there's a 30 to 70 chance. Okuda Ba pinched his eyebrows and added, 30 for us, 70 for them. Everyone immediately fell silent. What he meant was that even if they used the 10,000-mile array, they would only have a 30% chance of successfully escaping. As for the remaining 70%, if they were caught, the result would be obvious. Without spiritual chi, there would be no array. Without the protection of the array, an ancient battleship would be nothing more than a pile of scrap metal. Not even a random nascent soul stage sea beast would be able to stop it. Since that's the case, there's no need to worry. There's only a 30% chance for everyone to gamble with their lives. Is everyone willing to gamble? Even if you stay and fight, your chances of survival are higher than this. Lin Yi said calmly. This sentence completely dispelled everyone's thoughts of escaping. Since running was more dangerous than not running, then why the hell would they run? These crew members were all experienced soldiers. Once they were forced into a desperate situation, their morale and ability were far beyond that of ordinary people. Just like at this moment, each and every one of them looked like they had been injected with chicken blood. They couldn't wait to find the sea beasts outside and fight them to death. None of them mentioned the 10,000-mile formation again. Okay. Since they want to play, then let's play with these ugly monsters. Okuda Ba suddenly roared and ordered without hesitation. Listen to my command, activate the Starfall formation. Roger. All the crew members responded with a loud rumble. Even Lin Yi was startled by this sudden surge of adrenaline. He couldn't help but tug at Hui Yuti's sleeve and whispered, What's the starfall formation? I don't know either. Wayuti shook her head. This should be the core secret of the battleship, just like the 10,000-mile array. She was not a member of the battleship, just a temporary passenger. How could she possibly know such a thing? This is the ship's most powerful offensive formation. Just like the 10,000-mile formation, it's a trump card that requires all of the ship's spiritual energy reserves to be exhausted. However, the 10,000-mile formation is used for escaping, while the starfall formation is used for attacking. Okuda Ba took the time to explain. Then he looked up at the starry sky and said in a joyful tone, "Luckily the weather tonight is good, giving us an additional 20% chance of winning." Lin Yi didn't understand what he was talking about, but he could roughly guess that this starfall formation had something to do with the weather. If he understood it literally, could it be that they wanted to make use of the stars in the sky? Okuda Ba didn't have the time to explain any further. He immediately ordered, "All teams get into position. We only have 6 hours. After 6 hours, our spiritual energy will be depleted and we won't be able to do anything. Therefore before dawn we must kill all of these scum. After dawn, I will toast to each and every one of you." Yes. The crew members' voices were filled with a murderous aura, as if they were soldiers going out to battle. They would either return victorious or die on the battlefield. As they spoke, with the ancient battleship as the center, a monstrous wave of air that had never been seen before came crashing down. Without any warning, it created a huge wave that was tens of feet tall. The weaker original infant stage sea beasts were instantly blown away by the wave of air. Once they got serious, they wouldn't even have the qualifications to be cannon fodder. Lin Yi looked at the scene in front of him in shock. He wasn't sure if it was an illusion, but he felt as if the stars in the sky had suddenly become much brighter. Before there were only stars in the sky, but now they were as bright as lanterns, clearly visible. At the same time, what made Lin Yi even more speechless was the table in front of Okuda Ba. Originally there was nothing on it, but now there was a dreamlike astrolabe. If one looked closely, they would realize that this astrolabe was 100% compatible with the stars in the sky. Let's begin. Aren't they using the humpback whale as a meat shield? Then let's destroy this meat shield and treat it as a greeting. Okuda Ba smiled sinisterly and ordered, "Lock onto the humpback whale, starfall array release." As soon as he finished speaking, he moved his finger lightly on the astrolabe. When he touched the star, it suddenly shone brightly. Before Lin Yi could take a closer look, he heard a deafening explosion outside. An incomparably huge pillar of light descended from the sky. The night that was shrouded in darkness instantly became as bright as day. Everything in front of him was blinding white light. In the blink of an eye, the shocking white light quickly dissipated. Lin Yi looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The humpback whale that was like a mountain had actually been blasted into pieces by this white light. In the sea, all that could be seen with the naked eye was a small mountain of minced meat. Lin Yi couldn't help but swallow his saliva. A powerful sea overlord that was as powerful as the mountain opening stage was just gone in an instant. This was the ultimate killer move of the ancient warship, Starfall Array. Okuda Ba and the crew members were indifferent to this shocking scene, but the sea beasts outside were completely shocked. Not only the profound ascending stage sea beasts were trembling, even the deep-sea mad shark, nether mother, soul hook fish and thousand-footed king crab, the 4 mountain opening stage sea beasts, unconsciously retreated a few miles. If they were alone, they might have retreated after witnessing the shocking scene of killing the chicken to warn the monkey. The humpback whale had the toughest skin and flesh among them. If even the humpback whale suffered such a fate, the 4 of them would only end up worse if they were hit by the white light. However, after they only retreated a few miles, they suddenly stopped at the same time. Each of them let out a shrill and horrifying roar. After struggling desperately for a while, they rushed back again. Every one of them had bloodshot eyes as if they had lost their minds. Their bodies exuded a terrifying aura of madness. The other profound ascending stage sea beasts were immediately bitten into pieces when they got a little closer. It seemed that they didn't distinguish between friend and foe. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.